Chapter 94. Originally, Liu Yanzhou had stayed here due to an illness, but after recovering from his fever, he chose not to leave. Instead, he decided to make this place his residence. The pearls at his waist were of poor quality and needed replacement. Shi Liao-liao sat aside, watching as Liu Yanzhou meticulously critiqued a dress without end, thinking to herself, I remember that I am the girl here. Gazing at the stunning dress capable of easily capturing a girl's heart, she truly could not discern any flaws. It's merely a party dress, not a wedding gown. Young master, you ought to take your medicine. The last sentence, though it sounded caring, upon reflection, appeared to imply that Liu Yanzhou was unwell. Liu Yanzhou shifted his gaze from the dress, his tea-brown eyes glinting with amusement as they met hers. Are you hinting at a proposal? You cannot marry your stepmother. Young master, the design team. Such a convoluted relationship. I can. That old fool wouldn't he know? Liu Yanzhou pulled the cushion in his arms closer, gesturing for someone to change the accessory. Shi Liao-liao rolled her eyes. Recently, she had grown increasingly audacious in front of Liu Yanzhou, completely shedding any pretense. Her behavior utterly free-spirited and indulgent. Observing her transformation from her formerly aloof demeanor, Liu Yanzhou appeared unfazed, seemingly quite pleased. Forcing herself to recall the tragic visage of her mother on her deathbed in her past life, Shi Liao-liao reminded herself to remain vigilant. In the afternoon, Xian arrived. Originally, Shi Liao-liao had hoped he would speak to Liu Yanzhou, urging him to engage in more serious matters rather than fixating on a dress that held little relevance to him. Yet, unexpectedly, he picked up the pair of high heels with a serious expression, examining them as if they were a groundbreaking invention. You two getting along so well makes sense, she remarked, returning to her room to call Yang Qingcheng. What do you think has gotten into them? Yang Qingcheng, having returned from a recent holiday, was bombarded with explosive news by her brother, who had just learned of it. Did you know? Your good brother is a girl. Your good brother is a girl. Your good brother is a girl. Your good brother is the young lady of the Shi family. He was at a loss regarding how to interact with Shi Liao-liao, until Shi Liao-liao took the initiative to call him. At first, he found her feminine attire quite disconcerting. However, she remained the same Shi Liao-liao. Merely her gender had transformed. He quickly came to terms with this reality and simultaneously understood why Liu Yanzhou had always harbored a slight animosity towards him. At this thought, Yang Qingcheng felt an unusual sense of superiority, relishing the idea that she could evoke jealousy in Liu Yanzhou, which indeed felt quite gratifying. You needn't worry about that. Your only responsibility is to make an appearance, she mused. The thought of Shi Liao-liao's astonished expression the next day caused Yang Qingcheng to curl her lips in a mischievous smile. She pondered, what a spectacle it's bound to be. Observing his expression, Shi Liao-liao thought, here we go again. What kind of banquet was it that no one had elaborated upon? A banquet? What was it celebrating? Liu Yanzhou's successful operation, or Yang Qingcheng's skyrocketing sales of calcium tablets, with Xian. After tomorrow, would she finally be able to leave this place? Just before sleep, Shi Liao-liao gazed at the goodnight message from Liu Yanzhou and couldn't resist asking. He responded promptly. Liu Yanzhou. Seeing that simple Shi Liao-liao felt a wave of reassurance wash over her. Good night, Liu Yanzhou, she whispered. The following morning, a maid promptly extricated Shi Liao-liao from her warm cocoon. Why am I up so early when it was just night? She wondered, shivering slightly as her body was forced out of the comforting embrace of the bed. The maid gently explained, after an hour of fasting morning runs, you'll have breakfast to maintain your optimal state for hairstyling and manicures, followed by a full-body massage and care, which will take until the afternoon. Then, makeup and styling. And by then, it will be just about time. This long string of instructions left her mind reeling. Last time, I merely changed into a dress, donned a wig, and applied some makeup in just an hour. Now, it's an entire day of fuss. Fine, it's the last time anyway. After today, I'll retreat back to my ordinary life. What about the young master? Typically, at this hour, Liu Yanzhou should have completed his morning run and be enjoying breakfast. The maid replied, the young master has gone to the company. Young master Shi Yan also left after you fell asleep last night. Shi Liao-liao felt like a marionette, manipulated by a group of people, needing only to lie down or sit and cooperate. At noon, the maid fed her a morsel of food, barely sustaining her. Meanwhile, at the Shi residence, the absence of Mu Xian cast a shadow over the engagement banquet, making its continuation seem improbable. The head of the Shi family sighed, casting a glance at Liu Yanzhou, his eyes tinged with guilt. Before Liu Yanzhou could say anything, Madam, she suddenly interjected. No, the engagement banquet shall continue. The head of the Shi family appeared somewhat taken aback. Madam? Beside him, Shi Yan, idly toying with the porcelain on the table, lazily chimed in, I second that. Observing his wife's resolute expression and his son, with whom he had not spoken in ages, the head of the Shi family sensed something was amiss. Could there be matters of which he was unaware? Lu Yanzhou's demeanor remained unchanged, yet he did not express himself as bluntly as Madame Shi or Shi Yan. Instead, he stated, the invitations have already been sent out. The world knows that tonight there will be a grand union between the Lu and Shi families. To halt this now would tarnish the reputation of both families. The head of the Shi family revealed a glint of satisfaction in his eyes. Truly, he had chosen a commendable son-in-law. If there was but one flaw, it might be his somewhat ambiguous relationship with a male servant by his side. However, that was inconsequential. Once matters concerning his daughter reached a resolution, he could easily fabricate a reason to dispose of that male servant. The head of the Shi family smiled. Appearing both righteous and gentle, who could discern that he once mingled in the underbelly of society? As nightfall replaced the waning daylight, casting shadows across the land, the Shi residence shimmered with lights, dazzlingly brilliant. Shi Liao-liao was taken aback by the spectacle reserved for the capitalists. Though she had occasionally accompanied Lu Yanzhou to such venues in the past, this particular one was especially grand. She felt akin to a country bumpkin entering the city, glancing around in awe. Must I wear this? She murmured, tugging at the cloak draped over her shoulders, addressing the maid who had accompanied her. The maid nodded. The young master insists that you wear it and only remove it at the appropriate moment. Although somewhat perplexed, Shi Liao-liao chose not to voice her confusion. She merely thought of enduring the night, so she could leave. It was not until she entered the venue that she realized the banquet was, in fact, Lu Yanzhou's engagement ceremony. Lu Tingfeng had also arrived. One would hardly suspect this man had previously gone missing. Now in middle age, he remained strikingly handsome, his demeanor exuding grace and propriety. If one overlooked the arrogance in his eyes, Shi Liao-liao could almost envision Lu Yanzhou many years hence. Ostensibly, he was still the head of the Lu family, currently engaging in pleasantries with a smile. Naturally, I must attend my son's engagement banquet. Yet, his gaze darkened as it swept across all the women present, landing last on Shi Liao-liao, who stood shrouded in her cloak in the corner. He raised his glass towards her, then stood and made his way in her direction. I found you, he smirked, mouthing the words across the crowd. But the next moment, as the symphony commenced, the long-missing Mu Xian suddenly pushed open the grand doors, elegantly entering in a splendid gown. The guests assumed it was a deliberate arrangement. Regardless of their true feelings, all faces bore expressions of congratulatory applause. However, as the protagonist of the engagement banquet stepped into the center of the gathering, she abruptly halted, turning to survey her surroundings. Her clear voice resonated throughout the hall. I apologize for deceiving everyone. In truth, I am not a child of the Shi family. Chapter 95. Lu Tingfeng's expression shifted as he approached Shi Liao-liao, his gaze towards Mu Xian now laced with anger. The head of the Shi family, initially feeling both irate and relieved at Mu Xian's appearance, now bore a look of sheer bewilderment. An uproar erupted throughout the venue. Lu Yanzhou observed Mu Xian with a cold glare, his lips curling into a distinct sneer. Well, she has certainly taken the initiative. Secretary Shi, having received his master SQ, promptly ascended the stage and cleared his throat. Many recognized him as Lu Yanzhou as secretary and immediately fell silent. Ladies and gentlemen, Mu Xian is indeed not the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Shi. Some sharp-eyed individuals noticed Madame Shi nodding in calm acknowledgement, as if she had anticipated this. Shi Yan, standing nearby with a rigid posture, regarded Mu Xian with an expression that mingled amusement and coldness. Only the head of the Shi family maintained a facade of composure, while internally, he was engulfed in turmoil. Secretary Shi smiled, signaling for everyone to remain calm. Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the VCR. Suddenly, the ground behind him began to crack, revealing a massive screen that slowly came into view. At this moment, those with discernment realized this was no accident. It had been meticulously planned. What was supposed to be a commendable union, envied by all, had unexpectedly morphed into a sensational drama. The guests were as if collectively injected with adrenaline, caught up in the unfolding spectacle. Yet, one individual remained disoriented, standing cloaked in the corner. Shi Liao-liao's mind went blank the moment the protagonist proclaimed she was not a child of the Shi family. Now, she was only just regaining her composure.
Huh?
Maru, am I dreaming? What does this mean? If Mu Xin is not a Shi family miss then? Maru anxiously responded. That means we have mistaken the person. She is not the protagonist. For heaven's sake, how could there be a true and false heiress plot twist? Like everyone else, Shi Liao-liao fixated on the screen, desperately seeking the truth. Although she wished to abandon her mission, discovering such a pivotal error just before the finale would drive anyone into a frenzy. My name is Wang Yuan. I was a servant in the Shi family 18 years ago. As Shi Liao-liao gazed at the speaker, she felt a sense of familiarity. The moment this person appeared, Madame Shi's eyes flashed with unmistakable hatred. My wife and I serve as servants in the West family. She gave birth on the same day as Madame West, but tragically, the child did not survive. It was born a stillborn. This event drove her mental state into disarray, leading her to mistakenly identify Madame West's daughter as her own child, whom she then abducted. Upon hearing this, Madame West's tears flowed freely, while her son, Shi Yan, embraced her, gently patting her back, yet his narrowed eyes were filled with an icy glare. Upon returning home, I discovered the child and initially intended to quietly return her. At this juncture, the figure on the screen became animated, seemingly eager to convince others of his initial intentions. However, his voice faltered momentarily before he continued. I have a gambling addiction, and during that period, I squandered all my savings. In a moment of madness, I harbored malicious thoughts and sold that child. Madame West's shoulders shook, and the head of the West family rose from his seat, veins bulging on his forehead. Trembling with rage, Shi Liao-liao sighed, shaking her head, lamenting, what a tragic protagonist. I have already recognized my mistakes. After my wife passed away, I was reported for my gambling and expelled from the West family. I pondered whether this was my retribution, which led me to contact the trafficker from before. However, that trafficker had been imprisoned. During the transfer of the child, he was assaulted by someone, and the police could not locate the child's relatives. So she was adopted by a kind-hearted person. Shi Liao-liao mused how dramatic this was, rather than being sold. The child was fortunate enough to be adopted by a benevolent soul. At this moment, a second voice echoed in the footage. What are the details of that individual? Shi Liao-liao recognized the voice of Secretary Shi and immediately perked up, listening intently. I only know his surname is Shi. He is the butler of the Liu family, residing in a small town adjacent to Zhi City. A wave of astonishment swept through the crowd. The Liu family? The youngest daughter of the West family was adopted by the butler of the Liu family, and they had a childhood betrothal. Could it be more dramatic than this?
Wait.
The butler's child? My brother is studying at Stenton. I heard that the male servant beside Liu Yanzhou is the child of the previous butler. Wasn't it a girl? Did you mishear? Lu Tingfeng's gaze fell upon Liu Yanzhou, who had been standing in the shadows, and the father and son exchanged glances across the crowd. The young, sharp-witted heir of the Liu family, adept at biding his time, lifted his wineglass toward the previous head of the family, who was now mentally deranged. With a hint of mockery in his tea-brown eyes, the identical gesture was a subtle salute from Liu Yanzhou. As the crowd buzzed with speculation, Shi Liao-liao found herself utterly bewildered. She even questioned whether she was trapped in an absurd dream. Stretching her hand to pinch the person beside her, she heard them yelp in pain, and she murmured, "This is not a dream." A girl disguising herself as a boy in a male school, bending the male lead's affections, leading to a fervent pursuit and tug-of-war between them, becoming the primary reason behind the male lead's rift with his father, and most importantly, the West family had lost their youngest daughter for many years. Thus, I, Shi Liao-liao, am the true heroine of this world. Liu Yanzhou approached the tear-streaked head of the West family, holding a folder. Miss Mu Xian voluntarily admitted her courage, yet he hoped she would examine the complete chain of evidence. He opened it briefly, then rose, looking fervently at Liu Yanzhou. "Where's my daughter? Your refusal to cancel the engagement banquet is not solely to expose this Mu Xian's identity, is it?" Liu Yanzhou smirked, a hint of cunning gleaming in his tea-brown eyes. Indeed. Still in shock, Shi Liao-liao was gently tugged by the maid beside her. "Miss, come with me." The maid, who had been tense upon seeing Lu Tingfeng, realized the moment had finally arrived and promptly pulled the dazed Shi Liao-liao away. Shi Liao-liao allowed herself to be led, permitting the maid to remove her cloak. The lights in the banquet hall suddenly dimmed. Liu Yanzhou, who had been standing at the back, stepped into the center, a spotlight illuminating the handsome countenance of the newly appointed head, exuding the allure of mature masculinity. "Ladies and gentlemen, my fiancé is right here." His clear voice resonated through the microphone, reaching every ear. Another spotlight shone down, illuminating the girl favored by the light, allowing everyone to behold her beauty. Unquestionably, the results of the scrutiny by Lu Yanzhou and Shi Yan led to Shi Liao-liao outshining the entire assembly. She had gathered her long hair. Her naturally fair skin now dyed a light golden hue, cascading elegantly, making her skin appear luminescent in the light. The silver-white, waist-hugging, spaghetti-strap gown was adorned with delicately arranged pearls, and the silk hem of the dress reflected a myriad of sparkling lights as she moved. Facing the gazes of the crowd, the young woman nodded gracefully, an elegant gesture that belied any semblance of a servant's humility. The assembly could not help but marvel at her poise. A true heiress indeed, unfazed even in such a high-stakes setting. They discreetly glanced over at the now retreating Mu Xian, yet to their disappointment, the false heiress bore no shame. Instead, she fixated on the true heiress with a peculiar pride and admiration, as if she were the true heiress's mother. Lu Tingfeng stood below the stage, his expression darkening to the point of resembling a storm cloud, yet his lips curled into a polite smile, until his gaze lingered on Shi Liao-liao's wrist. Upon noticing the bracelet subtly emanating a soft purple glow, his expression shifted entirely. While others may not recognize it, he surely would. That was a birthday gift from Wenyu to the 5-year-old Lu Yanzhou. That boy had always treasured it. Anyone who dared to touch it would face his wrath. Now, it had surprisingly appeared on Shi Liao-liao's wrist. Almost everyone believed that the West family had gained an exceptionally composed daughter with an icy demeanor. However, only Lu Yanzhou understood her inner turmoil. I feel like I need to relieve myself. Why is this path so long? How much further must I walk? Laugh, laugh. Laugh, what are you laughing at, Lu Yanzhou? Your eyelids are heavy and you can only blink. Why don't you come over and help me out? Contemplating how he had kept everything hidden thus far, subjecting her to shock and disbelief, she felt a surge of anger. Lu Yanzhou seemed to hear her thoughts, as he genuinely approached her, accompanied by the 3 members of the West family. Initially, Lu Yanzhou led the way, but soon, the head of the West family and Shi Yan began to jog, leaving the image-conscious Lu Yanzhou trailing behind, as he would never run in such an important setting. As he gazed upon Shi Liao-liao, the head of the West family seemed to see the reflection of his wife in her youthful visage. You resemble your mother so much. The self-proclaimed iron-willed patriarch of the West family gazed at his daughter, finally found after so many twists and turns, and a tear slipped down his cheek. Faced with her blood relative, unprepared for such an encounter, Shi Liao-liao could only nod silently. At that moment, Shi Yan leaned in, nudging his father aside, and smiled at Shi Liao-liao. Liao-liao, now you can call me brother, right? Shi Liao-liao looked up at him, her previous misconceptions of his mental state dissipating entirely. The brotherly version of Shi Yan appeared rather foolish, and the harshness he once exuded had vanished. With a willing heart, Shi Liao-liao called out brother. Shi Yan's eyes glistened, and he turned his head away, raising his hand as if to stroke his sister's hair, but hesitated, unwilling to ruin the hours she had spent on her hairstyle, and let his hand drop. However, Mother West was unperturbed by such considerations. She directly enveloped Shi Liao-liao in a tight embrace. I'm so sorry, Liao-liao, I didn't recognize you. After years of separation, the daughter unexpectedly stood right before her eyes. Despite having met before and feeling an innate familiarity, she failed to recognize her. Shi Liao gently patted her back and said, It's all right, Mrs. Shi. After a moment of struggle, she ultimately could not utter the word mother. Upon hearing this address, Mrs. She felt a pang of heartache that nearly rendered her breathless, and her sobs grew more intense. However, it was understandable that after so many years apart, her daughter would not be accustomed to the sudden change in address. It's fine, my dear. I do not wish to impose anything upon you. You are back. And that is enough. Observing the tearful reunion of the family, several empathetic female guests had already begun to shed tears. Mr. Lu Yanzhou patiently stood aside, waiting for the family to regain their composure before subtly indicating his presence. The head of the Shi family regarded him with a gaze akin to that of a trafficker. This young man had targeted his daughter while she was serving as a male servant, as if he had meticulously orchestrated everything, waiting for her to fall into his trap. Lu Yanzhou maintained a calm demeanor, even offering a harmless smile. She felt a twitch of irritation, letting out a couple of heavy huffs before turning his head away. As the scene unfolded towards a seemingly joyous conclusion, Mu Xian quietly withdrew. Accompanying her was Lu Tingfeng, who had been outmaneuvered by his own son. They exchanged a glance, both filled with mutual disdain. Did you already know that Shi Liao was the daughter the Shi family lost? Lu Tingfeng furrowed his brow, an undeniable trace of anger etched on his handsome face. Mu Xian admired her freshly done nails before opening the window. As she observed the figure in black rushing down the corridor, she cast a scornful look at Lu Tingfeng. A mere supporting character wishes to tarnish my daughter's reputation? Do you think you are worthy? With that, she executed a graceful leap into the cold wind, snowflakes swirling around her. The pursuers bent down to catch her, but only managed to grasp the light blue cloak. Staring at the intricately embroidered fabric in his hand, he muttered, "But this is the 5th floor." Lu Tingfeng remained on the sidelines, his brow furrowed as he contemplated Mu Xian's earlier words. Supporting character? Daughter? What could this possibly mean? He had known Mu Xian for 2 years, and though she was merely a girl of similar age to his son, she possessed an unsettling wealth of knowledge, appearing and disappearing like a specter. Yet she was difficult to control. Their initial agreement was for her to infiltrate the Shi family to discover the secret of soul replacement, while he would assist her in locating someone. However, neither anticipated that their desires would converge upon the same individual, leading to an outright betrayal today. The thought of the bracelet on Shi Liao's wrist brought a fleeting sorrow to Lu Tingfeng's eyes. "Wan Yu, is this all preordained? Do you truly wish to remain distant from me?" The engagement banquet would not be halted by the disappearance of 2 inconsequential people. As Shi Liao stood beside Lu Yanzhou, listening to the congratulatory remarks surrounding her, she suddenly sensed something amiss. Maintaining a gentle smile, she nudged her elbow against Lu Yanzhou. Her newly minted fiancé patiently lent her an ear, bending down to listen. "I never agreed to be with you. How did we end up engaged?" In the wake of successive shocks, she finally grasped that Lu Yanzhou's so-called banquet was, in fact, her engagement party. She had yet to even enter a relationship. How could they be engaged? Was this a jest? Her thick lashes fluttered as Lu Yanzhou tilted his head to regard her, a light smile gracing his lips. Would you like a kiss?" His warm brown eyes reflected a hint of reluctance. Surely, such public displays were inappropriate. Before Shi Liao could respond, he donned an expression of indulgence. As if conceding to her whims, lifted her chin with his finger and leaned in. Chapter 97. Someone gasped in astonishment, and as the crowd followed her gaze, they discovered the male lead of today's banquet kissing the female lead's brother. Releasing her hold on Shi Yan's tie, Shi Liao exclaimed, exasperated, in public, "You two should tone it down." Lu Yanzhou, with a stoic expression, gently pushed the person in front of him away, elegantly and swiftly retrieving a handkerchief from his pocket to vigorously wipe his lips. Only when his pale lips were stained a deep crimson did he reluctantly relent. Shi Yan, covering his face, wore a sly grin, seemingly unperturbed. "Next time, just call me brother if you encounter such a situation. And please, don't be so rough. My tie almost got ruined." Shi Liao still felt somewhat unaccustomed to his indulgent demeanor, glancing up at him before murmuring an acknowledgement. Shi Yan, mistaking her reaction for displeasure, added, "If you like it, feel free to pull. I have plenty of ties for you to ruin." Shi Liao retorted, "When did you suddenly become the doting brother? Whatever happened to your noble, aloof persona?" She chuckled. "Oh, if only you had dressed like this earlier. You would have certainly captivated Lu Yanzhou to the point of emptying his pockets for you." Yang Qingzhou approached, accompanying Yang Qingcheng, and bent down to clink glasses with Shi Liao. Having not seen each other for a while, he had become sturdier, his complexion radiant as if bathed in the warmth of love. In stark contrast, Yang Qingcheng bore no trace of the once red-haired youth, resembling an unsheathed sword, both reclusive and exuding an enigmatic masculine allure. "Congratulations." He looked at Shi Liao, his eyes brimming with sincere delight. Shi Liao whispered, "I'll give you the key to that apartment in a few days." Yang Qingcheng shrugged, "Any time works for me." Just as they exchanged a few words, Lu Yanzhou suddenly approached, wrapping his arm around Shi Liao's waist with a smile that reached his eyes. "Qingcheng has arrived." Realizing that the owner of the apartment was Yang Qingcheng, and knowing that Shi Liao had trusted him immediately after her escape, Lu Yanzhou felt an urge to send him back to the army and never allow him to return. Shi Yan quickly followed, standing on Shi Liao's other side. "Qingcheng, come greet your sister Shi Liao. Back in school, it was you who always had your arm around my sister, wasn't it?" Under the hostile gazes of 2 formidable men, Yang Qingcheng remained unfazed, even managing to whisk Shi Liao away. Disdainfully shoving Lu Yanzhou's hand aside, Shi Liao followed Yang Qingcheng. Shi Yan struggled to maintain his smile.
Yang Qingzhou,
standing nearby, relished the scene. "Oh dear, my little brother is quite something. I'll have to have a word with him later." Despite his words, pride radiated from him as if his brother had stolen Lu Yanzhou's thunder. Lu Yanzhou quietly instructed a nearby maid to fetch Shi Liao a coat, then cast a glance at Yang Qingzhou. "Where's your girlfriend?" At this mention, Yang Qingzhou wilted like a withered flower. "Don't even get me started. When Shi Liao came out earlier, she claimed to feel unwell and went to the restroom. She is yet to return. When I messaged her, she only replied with a cold I suspect I might have inadvertently upset her." Shi Yan patted his shoulder. "Don't be disheartened. Perhaps she's just upset that you were secretly watching those videos and is contemplating a breakup." Yang Qingzhou retorted, "I don't watch those. Stop slandering me. When I learned about this from my brother, I was taken aback." The video bore some differences from reality. Shi Liao now appeared entirely like a young lady. Aside from her familiar eyes, there was no trace of her former self. "You look rather lovely now." This was the highest compliment given by Yang Qingcheng, who typically showed little interest in the opposite sex. Shi Liao playfully punched him. Of course, after a full day of effort, she could hardly afford to look anything less than splendid. "So you all knew beforehand, and I was the only one left in the dark, right?" She squinted her eyes. Yang Qingcheng nodded. "Indeed. Now that you've been recognized by the Shi family, you won't be able to continue at St. Dun," Shi Liao acknowledged. "That's true," she replied, though honestly, she had no preference regarding her place of study. He hesitated. "You and Lu Yanzhou." Shi Liao couldn't help but roll her eyes. She had struggled, resisted, and escaped. It was all in vain. Instead, young Master Lu went to great lengths to orchestrate such an elaborate accident to bind her to him. His cunning nature was utterly appalling. With the removal of the barriers of identity, Yang Qingcheng found herself less opposed to their relationship than before. Moreover, judging by the attitude of the Shi family, if Lu Yanzhou dared to betray Shi Liao-liao, Shi Yan would be the first to step forward and use Shi Liao-liao's sewage truck to knock some sense into him. Realizing that he was merely a metaphor for Shi Liao-liao, he silently condemned himself. If she liked him, then let her try. If not, should I just shove my brother up his nostrils? Shi Liao-liao suggested tactfully. Yang Qingcheng, that works too. Thankfully, he is not a petty person. Sister Shi has still shown restraint. Just then, a maid approached, draping a coat over her shoulders. "The young master is concerned you might catch a chill. He sent me to deliver this." She even thoughtfully mentioned that it was a directive from Lu Yanzhou. Shi Liao-liao's expression remained neutral, yet her heart felt a warmth. "Please thank him for me." The maid glanced at Yang Qingcheng before smiling and retreating. The two continued their conversation for a while, but Yang Qingcheng couldn't linger for long and soon departed. Upon returning, Shi Liao-liao spotted someone leaning against a pillar outside, seemingly waiting for someone. "What are you doing standing there?" she asked, feigning ignorance. Lu Yanzhou walked over, tightening the coat around her and naturally taking her hand. "So cold," he murmured, a hint of disdain flickering in his chestnut-colored eyes, apparently chiding her for chatting with Yang Qingcheng for so long. Shi Liao-liao raised a hand to tug at his collar, nestling her icy fingers into the warmth of his neck. The contrast was so comfortable that she squinted her eyes and teased, "Where's the cold? You're quite delicate, young master." Allowing her to warm her hands, Lu Yanzhou pulled her behind the pillar. "Your lipstick is a bit too bold," he remarked before lowering his head to nibble at her lips. For the first time, as Lu Yanzhou kissed her, Shi Liao-liao responded, her heart fluttering in the moment. "This is a reward for the scheming young Master Lu." A fleeting smile crossed Lu Yanzhou's eyes. Rather than retreating, he leaned in closer, becoming more audacious. In the midst of their intimacy, Shi Liao-liao suddenly recalled something and pulled back slightly, breathless. "By the way, what kind of history do you have with Yang Qingcheng?"
Ouch.
"Why did you bite me?" "That's a punishment for mentioning another man's name while kissing me." As the chapter concluded, despite the intense lipstick, there was none left on her lips. Lu Yanzhou had devoured it all. "From now on, I'm determined to buy expensive lipstick," Shi Liao-liao muttered as she accepted the handkerchief he offered to wipe her lips. Lu Yanzhou responded with an inquisitive hum, playing with a strand of her long hair between his fingers. "Cheap lipstick might just ruin you." He chuckled lightly. "I wouldn't want my fiancée to become a widow." Shi Liao-liao blinked. "That's all right. I could always find another." The consequence was that Shi Liao-liao was once again captured and kissed fervently until her tongue felt numb. "What's going on with Mu Xian? Did you arrange that?" Catching her breath, Shi Liao-liao seized the opportunity while Lu Yanzhou was in good spirits to inquire. He shook his head. "Mu Xian was not part of my plan. However, her initiative to confess has spared me some trouble." Lu Yanzhou suspected that Mu Xian might have known all along that Shi Liao-liao was from the Shi family. Despite being in a collaboration with Lu Tingfeng, she had not revealed this crucial detail, aside from Shi Liao-liao's gender. This woman was utterly inscrutable, reflecting on the gaze she had cast towards Shi Liao-liao earlier. Lu Yanzhou's expression turned cold. Who exactly is she? Considering that people from Lu Tingfeng's circle had appeared where he had been confined, she voiced her speculation. Could she be your real stepmother? Lu Yanzhou looked at her with amusement, gently rubbing her nose tip. Nonsense, my only stepmother is you. He then adopted a more serious tone. I haven't yet uncovered her background, but I know she established contact with Lu Tingfeng 2 years ago. Observing Shi Liao-liao's expression, he continued, her purpose in coming to the Shi family is to steal something. Shi Liao-liao's mind instantly flashed back to the scene of Mu Xian emerging from a room at that evening banquet. Steal what? Lu Yanzhou tightened his grip on her arm. A soul-switching secret method. Upon hearing this, Shi Liao-liao understood the situation. She was helping Lu Tingfeng steal it? If I'm not mistaken, this ridiculous method will likely be used on me. Lu Yanzhou chuckled softly, smart little one. But why would the Shi family possess such a thing? She questioned, frowning in confusion. Having grown up with Shi Yan, Lu Yanzhou was knowledgeable about these matters. Madame Shi's maternal family has practitioners of this art. As the only daughter, all records of the techniques were bequeathed to her after her elders passed away. This is the reason Lu Tingfeng and Mu Xian have set their sights on the Shi family. Shi Liao-liao's eyes widened in realization. Wow, my mother is quite remarkable. She then playfully scratched at Lu Yanzhou's Adam's apple. If you ever betray me, I'll pick up a few tricks to make you regret it. Lu Yanzhou, Shi Liao-liao, having used him, decisively let go. Where are you going? As she attempted to escape, Lu Yanzhou's arm shot out, pulling her back. Shi Liao-liao, feeling a bit anxious, declared, I have something to do. Yang Qingqing left. So, who would she seek now? Shi Liao-liao tugged at his hand. I'm not looking for anyone. I genuinely have something urgent. Being this clingy is not a good habit. Lu Yanzhou refused to let go, as he had only just managed to kiss his fiancée. Shi Liao-liao, in a fit of frustration, bit down on his wrist. I need to use the restroom. I can't hold it any longer. Was that direct enough? Lu Yanzhou, go ahead. He added, if you need paper, just give me a call. Got it. Shi Liao-liao snapped back. She had finally attempted to act a bit ladylike, and yet this banquet was relentless, leaving her no shred of modesty. Just as she was pulling away, Lu Yanzhou sent another message. Lu Yanzhou, so are we officially together now? Despite being domineering in person, kissing and holding her while refusing to let her go to the restroom, he appeared innocent like a child seeking reassurance after a brief separation. Shi Liao-liao sighed, chuckling bitterly. Lu Yanzhou, you really are something. While she pondered how to reply, footsteps suddenly echoed from outside the stall. Shi Liao-liao paid little mind, until she heard a deep male voice call out, Little Lu, who would have thought you'd be the one among us moving the fastest in a romantic relationship? Even filtered through a voice changer, the voice was unmistakable. Shi Liao-liao's first reaction was, pervert. How dare you come into the ladies' restroom? But immediately after, she recognized a voice that was all too familiar. If I don't tie her up, she'll surely run away, Maru murmured. So, host, is it possible that you ran to the men's restroom to relieve yourself? Shi Liao-liao twisted her face silently. It was fine, Shi Liao-liao. You've accomplished many impressive feats in your life. What's wrong with running into the men's restroom? No one would know, Maru. You can take your time in there. They started chatting. Yang Qingzhou continued, you've really hit the jackpot, liking a man who just so happens to be a woman. And a beautiful one at that. Enjoy your good fortune. Lu Yanzhou chuckled softly, responding with a low But does Shi Liao-liao know about that scandal? Who were you out with all night? Lu Yanzhou's voice sounded somewhat lazy. A beauty. Yang Qingzhou gasped. What the hell? What are you doing? Fooling around with a beauty before your engagement? I saw you in that photo, with your head lowered while she dried your hair. In all the time I've known you, when have you ever been so well behaved? You can't let Shi Yan find out. He already sees you as a kidnapper. If he finds out, he'll definitely skin you alive. He won't, Lu Yanzhou assured confidently. Yang Qingzhou seemed to have encountered some monstrous beast. What are you doing? Didn't you quite like Shi Liao-liao? Why are you so indecisive? In this modern age, one cannot simply begin selecting consorts just because one has ascended to the position of the head of the Lu family. Shi Liao-liao is such a delightful child. If you fancy someone else, then you ought to cease your affections towards her. Seeing his expression turn serious, as if he intended to engage in a prolonged discourse. Lu Yanzhou interjected, "She is." Before he could finish, his once distracted brown eyes abruptly shifted towards the partition. "What's the matter?" Sensing his gaze, Yang Qingzhou followed it but saw nothing. However, Lu Yanzhou apathetically withdrew his gaze and coldly asked, "Are you done?" Yang Qingzhou, perplexed, wondered if he had inadvertently offended Lu Yanzhou, as his demeanor had changed so swiftly. "I'm finished." Lu Yanzhou slightly lifted his chin. "Good, then let's leave." Yang Qingzhou, bewildered, inquired, "And you?" Lu Yanzhou, with his strikingly handsome face, replied nonchalantly, "I need to relieve myself. I can't hold it any longer." Yang Qingzhou was taken aback. How crude. He immediately fled. Once he departed, Lu Yanzhou locked the door and leisurely approached the last stall, knocking gently. "Shi Liao-liao, come out." A moment later, a feeble voice emanated from within. "What the heck? How does Lu Yanzhou know I'm in here?" He even pinpointed my exact location. "Did you install surveillance in the restroom?" Lu Yanzhou replied, "I'm waiting for you outside." Before turning away, he added with a teasing tone, "Don't even think about escaping." Upon hearing this, Shi Liao-liao inexplicably shivered, only realizing it once the footsteps faded. "What am I feeling guilty about? The one who did wrong is clearly Lu Yanzhou." Reflecting on Yang Qingzhou's earlier words, Shi Liao-liao found her urge to relieve herself dissipating. After some hesitation, she finally stepped out. "It's fine. If Lu Yanzhou doesn't provide a reasonable explanation once I exit this door, I'll turn him into a posterior." Lu Yanzhou quipped, "You almost turned into one yourself." "Finished?" Shi Liao-liao nodded. Lu Yanzhou queried, "How did you end up here?" Maintaining her aloof demeanor, Shi Liao-liao replied, "Having been accustomed to being a man, I momentarily forgot to adjust." Seeing her stern expression, Lu Yanzhou approached and took her hand. "Let us discuss what Yang Qingzhou said earlier." "What did he say?" "Good, you're being proactive, your punishment is reduced." Observing her feigned indifference despite her evident curiosity, Lu Yanzhou felt a surge of desire. If not for the less than romantic setting, he would have been tempted to kiss her passionately. Suppressing a smile, he mirrored her serious expression and led her into an empty room. "The woman Yang Qingzhou mentioned is Lady Shi." Shi Liao-liao slapped Lu Yanzhou's handsome face in shock. "You're involved with my mother?" Caught off guard by the slap, Lu Yanzhou momentarily questioned Shi Liao-liao's intelligence. Watching her glare at him, he felt a mix of helplessness. "Fine, I'll be her brain for now." "No. I spoke with Lady Shi regarding your matters. When she looked at your photo, I went to the rooftop. It was snowing, and when I returned with wet hair, she had someone fetch a towel for me." He added, "She watched over Shi Yan and me as we grew up, often helping us dry our hair when we played in the water. Typically, it was Shi Yan and Yang Qingzhou playing. I wasn't that childish." Seeing the red handprint slowly appear on his fair cheek, Shi Liao-liao felt a twinge of regret and gently caressed his face. "You should have mentioned it earlier." This slap was premature. Lu Yanzhou showed no sign of humiliation from the slap. Instead, he leaned down to rub his head against her shoulder. "Mommy, it hurts." Shi Liao-liao patted his hair soothingly. "It doesn't hurt, doesn't it? Let me tell you, humans are actually posterior animals. The first thing we develop in the womb is the anus. So, in reality, you're merely a rear end. Thinking of it this way, doesn't it hurt less?" Lu Yanzhou replied, "Knowledge has entered my mind in the most vile and disgusting manner. I demand compensation." "Stop changing the topic." He nibbled at her neck, his tone languorous. Shi Liao-liao pinched his chin and pressed her lips against his. "Is this sufficient?" With a red mark on half his face, Lu Yanzhou remained silent, merely gazing at her, silently accusing her of being perfunctory. Shi Liao-liao mused, "I'm starting to miss the gentle and distant Lu Xiao." Lu Yanzhou replied, "He is no more." Looking around, she realized they were in a guest room intended for those recovering from a hangover, and she pulled Lu Yanzhou towards the bed. "Undress," she succinctly commanded. Lu Yanzhou raised an eyebrow, teasingly asking, "Undress what?" Shi Liao-liao, her expression exuding annoyance, replied, "Of course, your clothes. Hurry up. Let us aim to finish within the hour." At her words, the smile at Lu Yanzhou's lips visibly froze. For a moment, he doubted whether he had misheard her. Seeing him remain motionless, Shi Liao-liao took the initiative to unbutton his shirt. As her fingers grazed his tie, Lu Yanzhou suddenly grasped her wrist. "You truly are." For a moment, Lu Yanzhou was at a loss for words, holding her tightly and attempting to adopt a serious expression. A girl's first time is precious. It cannot be approached so carelessly, you know? We've only just begun. We need to progress from holding hands to kissing, step by step. Shi Liao-liao gazed at his solemn demeanor and poked at the small mole beneath his eye, perplexed. How is a massage considered careless? It's not like we're making love. Lu Yanzhou sighed. Trying to be Shi Liao-liao's brain is no easy task. No need. Lu Yanzhou declined her offer. Shi Liao-liao wore an expression of exasperation.
But you said you'd reward me.
Lu Yanzhou covered her mouth. I meant not now. Let us wait until we return.
All right.
Return?
To where?
My sister must stay in her own home. During the banquet, the two main characters had disappeared one after the other, much to Shi Yan's dissatisfaction. Upon learning they were about to leave, he immediately interjected. Shi Feng and Lady Shi think likewise. Liao-liao, this is your home.
You should stay.
While Shi Yan was momentarily set aside, seeing Lady Shi with tearful eyes gazing at her softened Shi Liao-liao's heart. However, she quickly recalled her promise to Lu Yanzhou to return and assist him with a massage. Before she could speak, Lu Yanzhou preemptively answered for her. She is a member of the Shi family and, naturally, should remain. Shi Liao-liao was somewhat taken aback, having thought Lu Yanzhou would disagree, especially since he had never concealed his possessiveness from the start. Seemingly aware of her thoughts, he leaned down and whispered in her ear. They have lost you for so many years. You should give them a chance to make amends and shower you with love. As for Lu Yanzhou himself, he held many memories with Shi Liao-liao, along with 2 pots of flowers for company. If he were to satisfy his own desires by preventing Shi Liao-liao from spending time with her family, it would only push her further away. Shi Liao-liao's gaze flickered for a moment. Had I known, I would have kissed Yanzhou more. A glint of mischief flashed in her brown eyes. Yes, of course. He would gladly absorb any feelings of guilt. As the grand banquet concluded, Shi Liao-liao escorted Lu Yanzhou to the exit. Regardless of the nature of their relationship, she had always lived under Lu Yanzhou's watchful eye. Now, suddenly sending him off as a host felt somewhat disconcerting to her. She still perceived herself as merely a servant, just as she had instinctively taken on the role of a server when Lady Shi was seated earlier by pulling out the chair for her. I'm leaving. As she was lost in thought, a clear yet gentle voice suddenly interrupted her musings. Liao-liao raised her head to survey her surroundings, then beckoned Lu Yanzhou with a playful gesture. As he bent down, she tiptoed, aiming to plant a farewell kiss. However, she miscalculated the strength of her action and inadvertently collided with his teeth. In an instant, she turned to see her brazen son-in-law with blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Shi Feng quipped, "Is this sorrow so profound it leads to a fainting spell?" Chapter 100. After bidding farewell to all the guests, Liao-liao, now clad in a comfortable dress provided by the servants, found herself seated on the sofa. Confronting the Xie family alone, Liao-liao, her father began, "How have you fared these past few years?" In the dead of night, the 3 of them found themselves wide awake. Shi Feng, already irked by her inability to apprehend the brazen forger, felt an overwhelming guilt welling up upon seeing his true daughter. If Liao-liao were to suggest transforming the Xie household into a grand public restroom, Shi Feng would likely not even bat an eye in his quest to accommodate her. Though Liao-liao felt a hint of fatigue, the gaze of the 3 before her urged her to persevere. My grandfather treated me quite well. After his passing, the head of the Lu family brought me to their home, where I learned many things. Later, I attended St. Duns to study, albeit in male attire. Yet, I faced no undue hardship. My life has been quite fulfilling, she recounted. The individuals who had once troubled her now lay in a proctology ward. As an informed party, Shi Yan understood the nuances, his expression subtly shifting. When we return, I shall compile a list and send them back to the proctology department, he mused. After some reflection, Liao-liao shared numerous anecdotes from her past, steering clear of the unspeakable, yet articulating all that she could. Shi Yan stood behind her, gently massaging her shoulders. Feeling parched, Shi Feng promptly offered her warm water, while Shi Feng's wife oscillated between tears and laughter. To her, Liao-liao's seemingly decent life appeared almost pitiable, akin to that of Cinderella. As she concluded her stories, Liao-liao tilted her head and succumbed to slumber. Observing her drowsy state, Shi Feng remarked, "She has worked hard today. Tian, please escort your sister back to her room." Regrettably, they could only accommodate their daughter in a temporary room for the time being. The next morning, she intended to summon the designer to address the arrangements for clothing, shoes, and bags. Contemplating this, Shi Feng felt a surge of vigor. Shi Yan nodded, softly lifting Liao-liao into his arms. The girl was slight and delicate, cradled within his embrace, her serene visage standing in stark contrast to her usual aloof demeanor. Gazing at her, Xian felt a potent resentment towards that wretched Wang Yuan. Had it not been for him, they could have shared moments of learning to walk, learning to read, and even attending school together, with everyone aware of her brother waiting for her after classes. He could have nipped any budding affection from Lu Yanzhou in the bud. Gently placing her on the bed, he removed her socks and tucked her in tightly, planting a kiss on her forehead. "Good night, sister." He then tiptoed out. After his departure, Liao-liao turned over, rubbing her cheek against the pillow. "Oh no. I seem to be experiencing a bit of homesickness." "Maru, in other words, you miss Lu Yanzhou, huh?" Liao-liao, eyes closed, retrieved her hamster from the warm cocoon of her blanket and tossed it aside. "Maru, a woman scorned is truly fearsome." The following morning, as Liao-liao instinctively reached for her swallow plush toy, she realized it was nowhere to be found. As she groggily opened her eyes, it dawned on her that she was no longer at Lu Yanzhou's place. "Miss, are you awake?" A servant's voice echoed from outside, prompting Liao-liao to nod, aware they would soon check on her.
"Am awake."
The servants then filed in, presenting an array of dresses before her. An electronic screen displayed a meticulously crafted makeup look, and a smiling maid inquired, "Would you prefer to have breakfast in bed or downstairs?" As a member of the Lu family, Liao-liao was accustomed to opulence, and witnessing this scene filled her with a sense of awe that such extravagant fortune had finally graced her. After casually selecting an outfit, she rolled out of bed. "Let's eat downstairs. It feels somewhat impolite to dine in bed on my first day." However, upon stepping outside, she found Xian standing there, seemingly having waited for quite some time. Upon seeing Liao-liao, he greeted her with a bright smile.
"Good morning, sister."
Feigning ignorance of his deliberate wait at the door, she replied, "Good morning, brother." Although he was not her biological brother, the title brought a glimmer of joy to his eyes. Soon after, she encountered Shifeng. "Up so early? Did you sleep well? How's the mattress? Is it cold?" Liao-liao responded to each query in turn. As the three descended the staircase, they reached the dining area just in time to see Shifeng removing her apron. With a smile, she greeted them. "Come, breakfast is ready. I made congee myself." Shifeng turned to Liao-liao, saying, "Xian and I are fortunate to partake in your mother's cooking. She rarely steps into the kitchen." Xian nodded in agreement. "Indeed, thanks to you. We are enjoying a meal prepared by Mom on a day outside the holidays." Shifeng, disliking the smell of cooking oil, seldom cooked, but with her daughter back, she was eager to prepare meals for her thrice daily. "Stop chatting and eat. Liao-liao, come sit beside me." As she observed this family dynamic, Liao-liao felt a momentary daze. Is this what it feels like to be home? She then forced a smile. Looking at it this way, I do resemble a heroine from a romance novel. "This is delicious," she exclaimed after tasting the congee, turning to Shifeng, who, upon closer inspection, bore a striking resemblance to Liao-liao. Both shared the same delicate brows and eyes. After breakfast, the two men departed for work and school, frequently glancing back at Liao-liao, as if fearing she might vanish. It was Shifeng who finally urged them. "Liao-liao is right here. She won't run away. You're going to be late. Hurry up and leave." Only then did they exit. "Liao-liao, I'm off to lunch with the principal of Liao School. Would you accompany me?" Shifeng gently asked. Liao-liao guessed it had to do with her schooling and promptly nodded, "Sure." As they left, Liao-liao inquired, "Did you know I was your daughter even before yesterday?" Shifeng smiled, her warm gaze seeming to see through all. "You're inquiring about that photograph of Lu Yanzhou, aren't you?" Realizing her thoughts had been uncovered, Liao-liao offered an embarrassed smile. Shifeng patted her hand. "The person in that photograph is indeed me. Don't worry. The Xie family's public relations team is already managing the matter." Liao-liao murmured, "I actually don't mind that much." "Well, at least that boy is honest," Shifeng replied. Upon arriving at the school, after Shifeng introduced Liao-liao to the principal, she was led away for a tour. "President, a student has suddenly collapsed due to low blood sugar." A girl rushed over to the president, interrupting their conversation. The president of Liao School appeared somewhat troubled.
"Yet."
Liao-liao took the initiative. "I'm fine. You go ahead." After apologizing profusely, the president hurried off with the distressed student. Just then, as Liao-liao approached a garden, she decided to take a stroll, but before she could reach her destination, a hand suddenly emerged from the shadows, pulling her in. "I've got you now." Chapter 101. Upon hearing that voice, an image flashed through Liao-liao's mind. The person behind her held her tightly around the waist, their warm breath cascading over her ear, enveloping her back in a soft embrace. She didn't even need to turn around. She simply uttered that name.
Musin?
The person behind her softly acknowledged it. Yet, they did not loosen their grip. Shi Liao-liao found herself unable to move, but managed to twist her neck to glance at her. Mu Xian was taller than her, and as she tilted her head, her gaze fell directly into the depths of Mu Xian's lowered eyes. It had been a long time since they last met. Without the identity of the young lady of the Shi family, the softness that once graced her smile had vanished, replaced by a vibrant spirit, clearly indicating that she had been faring well lately. Despite the fact that Mu Xian was the one who first discerned her true gender, kidnapped her, and even assisted Lu Tingfeng in seeking the secret art of soul exchange from the Shi family, Shi Liao-liao did not share the disdain of Lu Yanzhou. Nor did she harbor the animosity typical of the Shi family members. Each encounter with her evoked a peculiar feeling, especially after Mu Xian had proactively confessed that day, making it difficult for Shi Liao-liao to harbor any feelings of hatred. "What are you doing here?" Shi Liao-liao attempted to struggle. Mu Xian's grip was not particularly strong, yet she found herself unable to break free. Mu Xian nuzzled her nose against Shi Liao-liao's hair. "Of course. I sneaked out to see you." Unable to contain her curiosity, Shi Liao-liao asked, "Who exactly are you?" Upon hearing this question, Mu Xian let out a peculiar laugh.
Me?
She whispered into Shi Liao-liao's ear, chuckling for a long while before softly stating, "If you wish, you may call me mother." Shi Liao-liao's pupils constricted sharply. Although a tempest of emotions surged within her, she maintained an unusually serious facade, clapping her hands to signal Mu Xian to release her, assuring her that she would not flee. Afterward, Shi Liao-liao took a step back, fixing her gaze upon Mu Xian. With her hair cropped short and clad in a loose denim jacket, paired with simple pants and long boots, Mu Xian's long and slender legs exuded a striking allure, captivating Shi Liao-liao's eyes. Then, to Mu Xian's astonishment, Shi Liao-liao bent down. "Mother." A fleeting shock flickered in Mu Xian's eyes, quickly followed by Shi Liao-liao's words, "Rest assured, no matter what happens, Lu Tingfeng is still the biological father of my dear Yanzhou, so you, as a little mother, must acknowledge him." She then boasted to Wanwan, "See, I suspected Mu Xian might be Lu Tingfeng's new love interest, and Lu Yanzhou even claimed that I was his only little mother." Wanwan replied, "Really? Lu Tingfeng is quite the lecher. How daring of him." "Oh wait, does that mean their relationship was initially one of cooperation, but then evolved into something else, prompting Mu Xian not to assist in resurrecting Lu Tingfeng's original partner? So Mu Xian ultimately betrayed Lu Tingfeng at a critical moment." Wanwan felt she had unraveled the story, expressing her sentiments. Shi Liao-liao also came to a sudden realization. However, the moment Mu Xian heard Shi Liao-liao utter Lu Tingfeng's name, her lips twitched, and upon seeing Shi Liao-liao's expression, she immediately understood that this person had certainly conjured some outrageous conjectures. "I am a lesbian," she pronounced emphatically. Shi Liao-liao gasped, "Huh? So Lu Tingfeng, like you, is also disguised as a man?" Wanwan. Of course, this was merely Shi Liao-liao's playful banter, and her words would undoubtedly make others question her sanity. "I'm sorry, what a pity for Yanzhou. Your little mother is gone again. Well then, I must take my leave. Lady Shi will worry if she cannot find me." Shi Liao-liao prepared to depart. Yet Mu Xian smiled and remarked, "Isn't this farewell rather casual?" Shi Liao-liao bent at the waist and clasped her hands, declaring, as a loyal servant, "This princess takes her leave."
Musin dito.
"Come here." Seeing Shi Liao-liao hasten her steps, she leisurely added, "Otherwise, I shall inform Lu Yanzhou that I have kissed you." Shi Liao-liao promptly turned around. "Princess, what is your command?" At this moment, she was no longer a mere servant. A glint of amusement flashed in Mu Xian's eyes. If it were anyone else, they would have been mortified, but Mu Xian viewed Shi Liao-liao through a lens of deep admiration. Even if she frolicked in filth on the street, she would still find it adorable. "Come here, let me embrace you." Shi Liao-liao regarded her with a hint of skepticism. Mu Xian laughed. "What are you afraid of?" "I one tea bite." Although she sensed that Mu Xian had some ulterior motive for being there, she also had a faint premonition that this person would not harm her. Once she came to this realization, Shi Liao-liao felt there was no need for further caution and boldly approached Mu Xian to share an embrace. However, at the very moment they parted, Mu Xian's hand suddenly circled around the back of Shi Liao-liao's head, planting a kiss on her cheek. Before Shi Liao-liao could fully process the sensation, a voice that sent shivers down her spine emerged from behind her. Shi Liao-liao. Shi Liao-liao spun around abruptly. Regardless of the timing or the location, the last person who should have been there stood directly behind her. Clad in simple light-colored casual wear, his chestnut brown eyes fixed intently on her, darkened with an ominous hue, and his lips pressed into a thin line. He did not appear angry, yet his expression was decidedly unsettling. Anyone could see he was not in a good mood. Shi Liao-liao mused, the cunning Mu Xian and her elusive stepson. In that instant, Shi Liao-liao felt it would be a disservice to Mu Xian not to spread rumors. Lu Yanzhou inquired, "This is a girls' school. How did you get in?" Turning her head, Shi Liao-liao realized that Mu Xian's figure had long since vanished. If it weren't for the lingering warmth on her cheek, it would be as if she had never been there at all. Lu Yanzhou approached, his gaze lingering on the reddened spot on her cheek. He elegantly produced a handkerchief, yet his wiping motion was notably rough. It wasn't until he had thoroughly reddened that area of Shi Liao-liao's face that he finally retracted the handkerchief, seemingly satisfied. "It was the security guard who let me in," Shi Liao-liao responded. Suddenly, Lu Yanzhou revealed a meaningful smile. When his chestnut brown eyes curved into a delightful arch, they sparkled like they were filled with fragmented sunlight.
Why?
Seeing him act as though he were deliberately withholding information, Shi Liao-liao felt perplexed. However, Lu Yanzhou did not answer. He merely leaned down and placed a soft kiss on the reddened area of her cheek before quickly raising his head, adopting a serious demeanor, as if he were not the one stealing kisses. "You're headed to see the principal, right? I'll accompany you." "Why on earth?"
Yanzhou.
"Please just tell me." While her heart raced in urgency, Shi Liao-liao maintained a calm exterior. "Fine, if you want to say, then you want to say." "How amusing. I didn't really want to know anyway." Lu Yanzhou regarded her with a bemused expression as they walked back, their arms brushing against one another. Initially, Shi Liao-liao wondered why he hadn't inquired about Mu Xian, but she soon realized something more important. Wait, why does Lu Yanzhou seem so familiar with this place? She had been led around and had lost track of the route. Glancing at the person beside her, Shi Liao-liao felt quite bewildered. Upon returning to the principal's office, she found the principal and Lady Shi engaged in lively conversation. Upon seeing Lu Yanzhou beside Shi Liao-liao, the principal's expression held no surprise. Instead, she stood up joyfully to greet them. "Mr. Lu, you've arrived." Chapter 102. Hearing this title, Shi Liao-liao turned her head, bewildered. "What is this? Mr. Lu? Who? Is there another person with the surname Lu in this room?" Lu Yanzhou shook hands with the principal. "Ma'am, it's a pleasure." The principal beamed with satisfaction. "I assumed Mr. Lu would arrive later, but I didn't expect you to come together." Then, with a hint of mischief, she winked at the two of them. "It seems we'll need to reinforce the classroom walls soon to prevent them from bursting at the seams with students." Lu Yanzhou smiled lightly. "This is?" Lady Shi approached with a hint of surprise on her face. Noticing her expression, the principal appeared puzzled but quickly masked her emotions. "Recently, I received Mr. Lu's resume, and after some verification, our school has decided to hire him as an external teacher." Shi Liao-liao exchanged a glance with Lady Shi, both of their faces reflecting the same astonishment. "Though you'll be in the 3rd grade after the holiday, graduation is still quite far off. How did you suddenly become a teacher?" In a moment of contemplation, Shi Liao-liao recalled the days when she believed herself to be under house arrest. Each time she laid eyes on Lu Yanzhou, he appeared utterly drained. Damn it. The wealth of capital is not frightening, but the relentless competition it fosters makes living unbearable. It was astonishing to realize that the affluent exert such effort beyond one's sight. While my failures are indeed lamentable, it is Lu Yanzhou's success that shatters my heart. The reason Lu Yanzhou chose to work here as an instructor was rather straightforward. "Madam," she cast her gaze towards the completely distracted Shi Liao-liao before shifting her attention to the individual beside her. "Such matters cannot be handled casually. This man, who has shed all traces of youthful innocence, must have been plotting this endeavor for quite some time." After a brief discussion with the principal, Lu Yanzhou took his leave, accompanying Madame Shi and Shi Liao-liao as they exited. "My former dormitory mate is also employed here. Since I rarely visit, I shall seek her out for a chat." With a smile, she turned to Lu Yanzhou. "Could you kindly escort Liao-liao back later?" Lu Yanzhou responded with a gentle smile, bowing slightly in a gentlemanly manner. "It would be my utmost pleasure, madam." Madam, she winked at him before turning to leave, evidently considered enough to grant the young couple some privacy. Shi Liao-liao gazed up at him, arms crossed, her expression impassive, yet Lu Yanzhou discerned the unmistakable glint in her eyes, pleading for an explanation. "Let us converse in my office." He took her hand and led her away. Shi Liao-liao's expression was a tapestry of complexity. "You haven't even started work, yet you already have an office?" Principal Leah was exceptionally generous, providing Lu Yanzhou with a private, well-lit office. By the window, Shi Liao-liao spotted the ball of wire flowers she had gifted him, the colors of the pot's little swallows somewhat faded. "It was delivered yesterday. Another pot remains at home." Lu Yanzhou approached her, encircling her waist and planting a soft kiss on the corner of her lips. What began as a gentle brush quickly escalated as he found himself unable to resist her. "Don't move," he commanded, turning her to face him and kissing her deeply,
his eyes slightly reddening.
This young man had a knack for enticing her when he became emotional. Feeling a sudden kinship with ancient tyrants, Shi Liao-liao was unable to resist the urge to bite him. "Not so fast, you haven't." He locked the door. Hearing footsteps outside, she pushed him away. Yet, instead of retreating, he pressed closer until her indignation compelled him to relent. "You are quite the disobedient student," Lu Yanzhou remarked in a tone of mild discontent. Shi Liao-liao nearly rolled her eyes in response. "Be careful, I might report you for inappropriate conduct with your student." With an air of nonchalance, Lu Yanzhou replied, "That would be quite fortuitous. It would deter all manner of unsavory individuals from harboring intentions towards you." Shi Liao-liao couldn't help but suspect he was alluding to Mu Xine, yet felt a sense of relief wash over her, realizing he had finally broached the topic. "I never anticipated encountering her. I certainly did not do so willingly." This is reminiscent of those dramatic moments in television dramas where the male lead inadvertently stumbles upon a misunderstanding, Lu Yanzhou mused, his tone tinged with melancholy. Shi Liao-liao observed his seemingly magnanimous yet subtly petty demeanor, her heart fluttering. She had never witnessed him so invested in a woman before. As if on cue, a notification chimed. "Congratulations, host, for unlocking the achievement. The young master's unprecedented concern for a woman." "I truly did not intend to articulate that," she remarked, feeling the atmosphere abruptly shift. "What's wrong?" Noticing her sudden vacancy of thought, Lu Yanzhou squeezed her shoulder, playing with a strand of her light golden hair. Once Shi Liao-liao regained her composure, she felt his hand slipping beneath her clothing. "Wait, you must first explain why you chose to become a teacher here." Grasping his arm, she playfully pinched the small mole at the corner of his eye. Lu Yanzhou's answer was simple. "Because you are here." "What a thought," she thought. "From the moment you learned of my identity, you must have devised this plan." It was easy to surmise that upon her return to the Shi household, Madam Shi would insist she attend the girls' school, and Lu Yanzhou, who preferred to keep her within his line of sight, could hardly bear the thought of only seeing her once a week. A smile played on Lu Yanzhou's lips as he leaned down to kiss her forehead. "My dear classmate, you are quite astute." Shi Liao-liao looked at him as if he were a peculiar creature. "What if my fiancé must attend a girls' school?" "Not to worry, Yanzhou will become a teacher." Checking the time, Lu Yanzhou murmured, "I trust you wouldn't mind kissing your teacher in the office, would you?" He then settled into the spacious desk chair, beckoning her with a finger.
"Come, sit on my lap."
Shi Liao-liao mused. If someone were to walk in at this moment, I might be startled and hide beneath the desk, and then her thoughts trailed off into a delightful thrill of possibilities. Eventually, she did indeed sit down, wrapping her arms around his neck and leaning in for a kiss. "When I next see you, shall I refer to you as Teacher Lu?" Pulling back slightly, she whispered, "You may call me Little Mother." No sooner had she spoken than a knock sounded at the door. "Teacher Lu, are you in there?" The doorknob turned. Startled, Shi Liao-liao quickly scrambled from his lap and crouched beneath the desk. Chapter 103. Shi Liao-liao reflected, a self-fulfilling prophecy, indeed. Regretting her overly dramatic reaction, she realized she could have simply remained on Lu Yanzhou's lap. Suddenly, a hand descended upon her head, the thumb caressing her crown in an undeniably intimate manner. Looking up in disdain, she thought, "You can forget about that." Lu Yanzhou teased, "What are you thinking day in and day out? Is it so wrong to touch the young servant from this angle?" "Master, you've arrived," the newcomer exclaimed upon spotting Lu Yanzhou, who sat calmly. The visitor, clutching a cardboard box, looked taken aback. "It's quite well decorated," Lu Yanzhou remarked, nodding with a gentle expression. The visitor, expecting to be dismissed, was taken aback by the praise and began enthusiastically explaining the office's design and clever features. Seeing Lu Yanzhou's attentive demeanor and the occasional appreciative glance, the visitor became increasingly animated. Meanwhile, Shi Liao-liao, crouched between Lu Yanzhou's legs, was the only one feeling discomfort. "You're doing this on purpose, Yanzhou." She rolled her eyes, seeing through his little scheme. Lu Yanzhou's fingers caressed her cheek, gently gliding over her soft skin. Suddenly, the speaker paused. Noticing a shift in Lu Yanzhou's expression, as if fearing his words had crossed a line. Yet Lu Yanzhou merely lifted his eyes, softly commanding, "Continue." The visitor, eager to please, nodded, believing Lu Yanzhou was inspired by his explanation. If only he had better eyesight. He might have noticed the tension in Lu Yanzhou's fingers resting on the desk, the veins on the back of his hand bulging with suppressed restraint, as if enduring a secret torment. The atmosphere grew thick with an unspoken tension. When the visitor finally glanced back at Lu Yanzhou, he was struck by the redness at the corners of his eyes, the shimmering depths of his brown irises, and the vivid hue of his lips. He fell silent, suddenly recalling someone once mentioning that their young master might be gay. Glancing down at himself, he was horrified. He was straight. He was straight. However, it is indeed Lu Yanzhou. After an internal struggle, he finally stepped forward with a resolute expression, embodying a sense of fearlessness in the face of death. As he exited, a clear yet slightly hoarse voice resonated within the room, tinged with a hint of coldness. He shuddered, instinctively nodding before turning to leave. At the moment the door closed, Lu Yanzhou's crimson lips parted slightly, a muffled sound escaping as his gaze turned dreamy. Shi Liao-liao rose from her seat, grabbed a tissue to dab at her mouth, and coughed lightly before casting a teasing glance at Lu Yanzhou, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "What will you do now, young Master Lu?" Lu Yanzhou shot her a glare with his once menacing, now languid, desire-laden brown eyes, which were more endearing than intimidating. Shi Liao-liao leaned down to plant a kiss on the faintly reddened beauty mark beneath his eye, then playfully patted his cheek. "Keep up the effort. I shall take my leave now." Before Lu Yanzhou could catch her, she slipped away like a slippery fish. "Don't forget to rinse your mouth," echoed her voice as the door clicked shut. Lu Yanzhou, somewhat at a loss, lowered his head and muttered a resigned little brat. She flirts and then vanishes, displaying not a shred of responsibility. At that moment, he resolved to teach Shi Liao-liao her first lesson on responsibility. As Shi Liao-liao departed, she coincidentally encountered Mrs. Shi, who had just finished a nostalgic chat with an old classmate. Clearly, they had enjoyed their conversation, as it had taken quite some time to conclude. "Isn't young Master Lu accompanying you home?" Mrs. Shi remarked with a hint of surprise upon seeing Shi Liao-liao, though her eyes, so reminiscent of her daughter's, exuded warmth. Feeling a tad embarrassed, Shi Liao-liao replied, "No, he has matters to attend to." The chauffeur opened the door, and they both entered the vehicle. Mrs. Shi teased, "It wouldn't be a quarrel, would it?" Shi Liao-liao shook her head. "No, it's young Master Lu who's arguing. Only Lu Yanzhou could tolerate you, Mrs." she said, her expression reminiscent of someone who had been through similar experiences. Young people should always communicate openly about their issues, after all. None of us possess the ability to read minds and know what the other truly thinks. Shi Liao-liao nodded, her face reflecting a demeanor of learning. Unable to suppress her curiosity, she inquired, "Have you and Mr. Shi ever argued?" Mrs. Shi smiled gently, "No." "So he has never made you angry?" Shi Liao-liao probed further. Mrs. Shi shook her head. "Over the years, he has indeed made me angry." Shi Liao-liao mused. "So you always talk it out with him to resolve conflicts?" Her tone held a hint of admiration for the ability to maintain composure and reason even when angered. "No, not quite. Typically, at such moments, I would slap that ruffian's face and instruct the servants to remove all the toilet paper from the restroom, ensuring he has none." Shi Liao-liao laughed. "You and Gu Shuizhao undoubtedly share common ground." Mrs. Shi inquired, intrigued, "Who is that?" This was not a secret, and seeing Mrs. Shi's curiosity, Shi Liao-liao recounted the incident involving Gu Shuizhao, who, in a fit of rage, had stolen toilet paper and mistakenly targeted the wrong person. Mrs. She collapsed into laughter against Shi Liao-liao's shoulder. "Though this child is somewhat obsessive, she is quite amusing. What is she doing now after being expelled?" Shi Liao-liao paused momentarily. "She is now the youngest president in the history of the National Anti-Homosexual Association," Mrs. Shi remarked, remarkably accomplished. As they conversed, Shi Liao-liao discovered that Mrs. Shi was not as poised as she had imagined. At times, she displayed a vibrant expressiveness, indicating she had undoubtedly been raised in an atmosphere of affection. The bond between the mother and daughter subtly strengthened. "Liao-liao, there is a question I have long wished to ask you." Noticing Shi Liao-liao had relaxed considerably in her presence, Mrs. Shi shifted the topic. With a lingering smile in her eyes, Shi Liao-liao turned to her. Why did the butler insist on you dressing as a boy? This matter was initially investigated by them, but the Liu family's confidentiality was too stringent, yielding no results. Shi Feng had inquired with Liu Yanzhou, who had merely suggested they ask Shi Liao-liao directly, claiming he could not dictate the matter. Shi Liao-liao fell silent. Truthfully, she had no desire to disclose this information. The relationship between the two families had been amicable in the previous generation. However, as Liu Tingfeng aged, Shi Feng became aware of the absurdities he engaged in behind closed doors, leading to a gradual estrangement. As he felt Liu Tingfeng was no longer the proud man he once was. Yet, the family still maintained contact. Once she revealed the truth, Liu Yanzhou, as Liu Tingfeng's son, would inevitably be implicated. She opened her mouth, about to speak when suddenly, the car jolted violently. In the immediate aftermath of the unexpected incident, Mrs. Shi instinctively wrapped her arms around Shi Liao-liao. The vehicle was overturned by the impact, and Shi Liao-liao was shielded beneath Mrs. Shi, sustaining only a minor bump to her head, though her vision blurred into darkness. With no response from Mrs. Shi, Shi Liao-liao called out to her anxiously, but to no avail. In that moment of chaos, a primal maternal instinct to protect her child surged within Mrs. Shi. Warm liquid dripped onto Shi Liao-liao's face, laced with panic. She pleaded, "Mrs. Shi, please don't scare me." After several desperate calls without any reply, tears streamed down Shi Liao-liao's face. "Mom?" Though her vision was obscured, her hearing sharpened, catching the sound of footsteps and faint voices outside. Yet, she did not feel saved. The road was too quiet, devoid of pedestrians, and the presence of an ambulance seemed improbable. Having spent ample time with the Liu family, Shi Liao-liao quickly deduced that this was likely a man-made accident, with the targets being either herself or Mrs. Shi. A throbbing pain invaded her head before consciousness faded away. Host, please wake up." Maru watched anxiously as Shi Liao-liao was lifted onto the operating table, calling out desperately. Yet, regardless of how loudly Maru shouted, she remained unresponsive. "The condition is stable. We may proceed," a man in a white coat announced, turning to a tall figure lurking in the shadows. "Begin." The man's voice was deep and rich. Yet his dark eyes were as foreboding as a beast lurking in the depths of an abyss. Even now, as his son had come of age, he remained strikingly handsome, save for the hints of malevolence etched into his features, as though time had forgotten him. "Defibrillator ready. 3, 2, 1. Host!" Maru cried out.
Mom.
As Mrs. Shi opened her eyes, Xian rushed to her side. She blinked weakly, and upon recognizing her son's weary face, she attempted to reach out to him, only to find herself utterly drained of strength. Thankfully, Xian grasped her hand. "Mom, you're awake." He swiftly turned to shout, "Call the doctor." Mrs. Shi had never seen her son appear so haggard. The thought of him having stayed by her side all this time filled her with concern. "What about Liao-liao?
How is she?"
Mrs. Shi's tone turned urgent as she thought of her daughter. Xian's gaze faltered, his throat dry. "She's fine. Once you feel better, I'll take you to see her." Mrs. Shi, too fatigued to notice his unease, murmured, "As long as she's all right," before succumbing to sleep. Xian covered her with a blanket, his expression gradually darkening. Still, there was no news. When he arrived shortly after the accident, Shi Feng had already been there, personally rescuing his wife. It was the first time in many years that Xian had witnessed such a terrifying expression on his father's face. The driver had perished, Mrs. She was injured, yet Shi Liao-liao was nowhere to be found. Soon after, Liu Yanzhou arrived, remaining silent as he called Shi Feng away. The two men conversed for nearly half an hour before both went madly searching for Liu Tingfeng. Xian was fully aware of Liu Tingfeng's intentions regarding Shi Liao-liao. He was seething with rage, harboring thoughts of tearing apart the scoundrel who had abducted his sister. Yet, at this moment, he found himself powerless. He had to remain by his mother's side, safeguarding her, while simultaneously concealing the fact that Shi Liao-liao had been taken by Liu Tingfeng. "Liu Yanzhou, you must bring my sister back," Shi Liao-liao thought, feeling as though 1,000 teddy bears were wreaking havoc in her mind, chaotic and absurd. It felt as if she had been asleep for an eternity, long enough to nearly forget her own identity. Ultimately, a sudden figure appeared, taking her hand and guiding her inside. The figure's hand was large and warm, enveloping hers, exuding the scent of sunlight. Being near him brought her a sense of tranquility. A brilliant light flashed past. Shi Liao-liao, as eyelashes fluttered, and she slowly opened her eyes. "You're awake." It took her a while to regain her consciousness. The speaker stood beside her bed, masked, revealing only a pair of cold, piercing eyes, mirroring the tone of his voice.
Who are you?
Shi Liao-liao asked, being offered a sip of water. "How much do you remember?" He retorted with a question. Shi Liao-liao attempted to recall, but her mind felt pricked by needles, dissuading her from continuing. "My name is Shi Liao-liao," she managed to utter after a pause. The doctor nodded. "That's already commendable. I'm not that impressive." Shi Liao-liao replied. The doctor, recalling the girl's profile, decided to act swiftly. Although Lu Tingfeng had given him a free hand, the doctor opted to craft a more polished narrative. "Your name is Shi Liao-liao. You are the wife of the head of the Lu family. Your husband is Lu Tingfeng, and due to an unfortunate incident, you've lost your memory." Shi Liao-liao interjected, "If I may be so bold, how old is my husband?" The doctor provided a number. Shi Liao-liao grimaced. What could I possibly see in him? The scent of old age? The doctor replied. "Lu Tingfeng is still quite young. He lacks the aroma of age. You are after his wealth." Shi Liao-liao found this reasoning acceptable. "What was the incident?" The doctor continued. "You went to Lia Girls' School to visit someone, and on your way back, your vehicle collided with a large truck, resulting in a head injury. Hence your memory loss." Shi Liao-liao nodded. "So that's why I only remember my name."
Who did I visit at that school?
"My family?" For reasons unbeknownst to her, she instinctively mentioned the word family. The doctor shook his head. "No, you only have the Lu father and son as family." Shi Liao-liao was taken aback. "Father and son? I have a son?" His gaze suddenly shifted to something peculiar, and the corners of his mouth curled beneath the mask.
"Yes.
You have a stepson, the child of the previous Lu matriarch and the family head. His name is Lu Yanzhou." Upon hearing that name, Shi Liao-liao felt her heart skip a beat. Lu Yanzhou, such a familiar name, stirring an inexplicable ache within her. She felt no such profound connection upon hearing her husband's name. Why was it that upon awakening in this hospital bed, with only a doctor by her side, the man who was supposedly her husband showed no concern for her well-being? A cold and indifferent husband, alongside a stepson who seemed to matter to her. As Shi Liao-liao locked eyes with the doctor, a bold thought abruptly surfaced in her mind. Could I have possibly become involved with my own stepson? Chapter 105. Where is everyone? Lu Tingfeng removed his coat, and the servant noticed that his right sleeve was stained a deep crimson, immediately lowering his head. In the room, Lu Tingfeng nodded but did not approach. Instead, he instructed the servant to summon the doctor. "What is the situation?" He skillfully took a pair of scissors and cut away the bloodied sleeve, not bothering to look up as the doctor entered, merely asking in a low voice, "What's the condition?" The doctor stood nearby, examining his wound. As expected, memory loss. A second occurrence in a short span could inflict further harm on the body. The tweezers pierced into flesh, causing Lu Tingfeng to frown. "Was it the young master's doing?" the doctor inquired.
Lu Tingfeng nodded.
In a moment of crisis, Lu Yanzhou's gun had grazed his head before striking his arm. It was no longer the time when the young boy stood before him, expressing a desire to learn marksmanship. "Is she still awake? Should I go see her?" Lu Tingfeng's expression revealed little interest. "How did you explain it to her?" The doctor recounted his words, noticing Lu Tingfeng's brow furrowing deeply, his eyes filled with a fierce intensity. "There can only be one Mrs. Lu. One body is unworthy of such a title." Seeing him grow angry, the doctor readily agreed. "Then I shall inform her that you both are divorced." Why was this person brought in? During dinner, Shi Liao-liao discovered that she had been divorced. Coincidentally, she encountered her former husband. His arm appeared somewhat restricted, as he could only use chopsticks with his left hand. Contrary to her expectations, he did not seem old. Instead, he was quite handsome, with a familiar aura about him. "Hello," Shi Liao-liao greeted. The man lifted his eyelids to glance at her, but did not respond, his demeanor haughty. Shi Liao-liao thought a little handicap. "And his temperament is quite unpleasant. No wonder I ended up with your son. The green hat is well-deserved." With this realization, the shock and guilt she felt upon waking vanished completely. Observing the bland, oilless dishes on the table, Shi Liao-liao set down her chopsticks. "I want to eat meat." Lu Tingfeng continued his meal, as if he hadn't heard her. Shi Liao-liao calmly stated, "I noticed my stool was black today, resembling the color of wood ear mushrooms, hence I want to eat meat." Just as Lu Tingfeng was about to put a piece of wood ear mushroom in his mouth, he pondered, what does Lu Yanzhou see in her? Prepare it for her. Lu Tingfeng set down his chopsticks, stood up, and walked away. Shi Liao-liao gleefully crossed her legs, awaiting her meal. At last, Lu Tingfeng had departed. After dinner, Shi Liao-liao summoned the doctor. This house boasted 3 floors, and the doctor resided in the adjacent room. The official reason was for care, yet Shi Liao-liao sensed it was more akin to surveillance. When can I go outside? This was the 3rd time she had posed the question that day. As with the previous 2 occasions, the doctor's answer remained consistent. Your health is not yet restored. I feel perfectly fine. I could practically sprout wings, Shi Liao-liao retorted. That makes it even less likely, the doctor replied. The consequence of refusing Shi Liao-liao's request was that he would have to venture out to buy her fried chicken as compensation. Shi Liao-liao sat in her room, her gaze vacant and lost in thought. The doctor had mentioned he had been living in the Lu residence since his arrival. Why did she feel such a sense of unfamiliarity with everything here? Moreover, the entire room lacked her personal belongings. It was all freshly purchased, devoid of any traces of life. The doctor's lies were rather clumsy, and at times he didn't even bother to conceal them. Shi Liao-liao propped her head up, staring at the snacks on the table. When her eyes caught sight of a bag of nuts, she felt an odd sense of forgetfulness. Lu Tingfeng had merely shown his face, nearly leading Lu Yanzhou to a breakdown. Yet he was cunning, swiftly disappearing without a trace, leaving everyone at a loss. Since he had appeared, it indicated that she was temporarily safe. All surrounding cities, including S City, had been thoroughly searched. Should the search radius be expanded further? Secretary Shi, unable to endure the suffocating atmosphere of the room, attempted to speak. In stark contrast to the tempestuous Lu Yanzhou, who threatened to demolish the house, he sat there, silent as a statue. Amidst such a heavy atmosphere, he abruptly stood up. Secretary Shi. Secretary Shi jolted awake. Young master? Lu Yanzhou slowly turned, appearing no different from usual at first glance, but upon closer inspection, one would be startled by the multitude of bloodshot veins in his eyes. Secretary Shi feared that before rescuing Shi Liao-liao, Lu Yanzhou might exhaust his own body. Do you remember where my mother found you? Upon hearing this, Secretary Shi momentarily froze. He was 5 years older than Lu Yanzhou. Abandoned by his parents during childhood due to an extra finger, it was Su Wanyu, who had not yet married Lu Tingfeng at the time, who rescued him from the brink of death in the cold. The address was 123, Sherdong Road. Upon finishing his statement, a shiver coursed through him, and he suddenly locked eyes with Lu Yanzhou. There? The moment he spoke, Shifeng immediately dispatched someone to investigate. The results were already in. The location you mentioned had been demolished a decade ago and transformed into a resort by real estate developers. However, due to financial issues leading to dilapidated buildings and a series of casualties, it had come to be regarded as a ghost town, now overgrown and largely deserted. He glanced at Lu Yanzhou beside him. You suspect she was taken there? Lu Yanzhou nodded. Shifeng took his gun and departed, his demeanor icy, devoid of the earlier familiarity where he affectionately referred to Lu Yanzhou as nephew. After learning from Lu Yanzhou the reason Lu Tingfeng had abducted his daughter, it was disingenuous to claim he bore no resentment towards Lu Yanzhou. The daughter he had painstakingly reclaimed was now in danger of being subjected to such vile acts by Lu Tingfeng. Every time he noticed the slight resemblance between Lu Yanzhou and Lu Tingfeng, Shifeng felt an overwhelming urge to see him suffer. The thought of his wife lying in a hospital bed only fueled his anger. Lu Yanzhou said little. He had been quietly enduring the turmoil for days. Call a few doctors to help him into the car, Lu Yanzhou instructed. Secretary Shi turned to fulfill the task. Unbeknownst to her, Tao, who was currently perched by the window, had unwittingly stirred a tempest. She had just discovered a peculiar skill, picking locks with a bobby pin. Gazing at the now open window, she paused for a moment. Should she jump out to investigate? Recalling the doctor's strange reactions to her desire to leave, Tao's rebellious spirit surged forth. The doctor had yet to return from fetching fried chicken. Even if she were caught fleeing, they could do little to her. After all, she was merely a widow recently informed of her divorce. With that thought, Tao swung herself up and began to descend the water pipe. Halfway down, a sense of familiarity washed over her. It felt as if she had climbed down a water pipe before. Chapter 106. Surrounded by darkness. The only light emanated from within the room, revealing stark, barren trees in the vicinity. Aside from a few distant buildings, there was nothing else in sight. The area appeared quite remote. The grand title of head of the Lu family spoken of by the doctor now seemed somewhat exaggerated in this desolate location. Which tycoon would reside in such an inhospitable place? As she pondered her direction, A sudden sound caught her attention. What was that noise? Tayo halted, straining to listen. Squeak. Squeak, squeak. It sounded like some kind of animal. Unable to discern what it was, she prepared to continue walking when she suddenly felt something clawing at her leg. It was a furry creature that she seized, and as she looked down, she was met with a pair of beady black eyes. The little creature was indeed fuzzy, albeit a bit dirty, with tiny paws waving at her. In the next moment, Tayo took a big step back, steadied herself, and with a flourish of her arm exclaimed,
Dirty rat.
"Away with you." The creature flew through the air in a parabolic arc. Maru, I'm taking off. Startled by the mouse, Tayo regained her composure and glanced around. Her previous shout had been soft enough not to attract attention, but for safety's sake, she needed to leave quickly. Unfortunately, she did not get far before encountering her first obstacle. Gazing up at the towering wall, Tayo thought to herself that climbing it would be quite the challenge. Turning around, she found nothing to aid her, when suddenly, a rope was tossed down from above, swaying enticingly as if beckoning her. Tayo paused for a moment. If she climbed up and encountered something strange, she could always relieve herself on their head. With that thought, she seized the rope without hesitation and began her ascent. Reaching the top, Tayo instinctively looked up at the sky. The moon had emerged. Yes, the moon was out. A girl clad in a windbreaker looked up at her with a smile, her expression implying familiarity. As Tayo recognized the girl, she jumped down halfway, landing in front of her. The girl in the windbreaker glanced down at Tayo's bare feet, frowning. "I heard Lu Tingfeng took you away. I guessed you would be here. So, I came to find you." Her tone suggested that Tayo was akin to a captive of her former husband. "Are your feet cold? Hop on, I'll carry you." She crouched down. Tayo bent over and climbed onto her back. At that moment, a flicker of astonishment flashed in Mu Xian's eyes as Tayo silently mounted her. "You don't remember me?" she asserted. Tayo paused for 3 seconds, ultimately unable to contain herself. Could it be that our relationship is quite poor? The girl in front of her gripped her legs tightly and stood up firmly. "Of course not. Rather, we are the closest people in this world." With that, Mu Xian's voice turned cold. "So, what did Lu Tingfeng do to you?" Tayo was still pondering the meaning of the closest people in this world when she sensed something amiss in Mu Xian's tone. It seemed her ex-husband's reputation for being a villain was indeed well known, and the matter of her amnesia likely tied back to him. "I don't know. I just woke up without any memories," Tayo responded, eager to gather more information from this girl. "If you don't mind me asking, who are you?" Mu Xian simply replied, "You can call me Mom." Tayo recalled the youthful visage of the girl before her, who appeared to be about her age. "Did you give birth to me when you were still a fetus?" Mu Xian laughed in exasperation. "Not in that sense. I'm your girlfriend." Tayo froze. Goodness. Was I really that promiscuous? She pondered how she had ended up with a stepson while seeking out a beautiful girl. Mu Xian had driven her here in a vehicle that contrasted sharply with her own appearance, placing her in the back seat without a care for the dirt. She immediately began to warm Tayo's cold feet by touching them and turning on the air conditioning. "Are you hungry? Let us go get something to eat." Tayo nodded. "I want fried pork cutlet."
All right.
As she gazed out at the scenery rushing by, Tayo asked, "Will you bring me back?" Mu Xian glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "Do you want to go back?" Tayo replied, "The toilet here is uncomfortable and the toilet paper isn't soft. But I feel like I'm waiting for someone. I haven't seen my son yet." A smile tugged at the corners of Mu Xian's mouth. "I want to be taking you back. You belong to me now. Don't forget it was you who pursued me back then." Seizing the opportunity while the young master was amnesiac, Mu Xian began to speak nonsense. Tayo was taken aback. Was I really that enthusiastic before? However, a fleeting memory of a girl hugging her from behind flickered in her mind. Could that person be this one before her? Tayo found it hard to believe. Eventually, Mu Xian brought the somewhat dazed Tayo back to a house that resembled her own. The overall tone was cool, the furniture sparse, yet all necessary living items were present. Tayo, now dressed in fresh clothes, sat at the dining table wearing the plush bunny slippers Mu Xian had given her. Gazing at her in the kitchen as she prepared fried pork cutlet, a wave of nostalgia washed over her, as if she had shared such moments with someone else. Her gaze fell upon a flower pot by the window, and she raised her hand to press against her aching temples. Unable to recall, she observed as Shi Liao-liao methodically consumed the meal she had prepared. Mu Xian sat patiently across from her, gazing intently. not as if she were looking at a girlfriend, but rather as if she were admiring her most exquisite creation, exuding a maternal affection. Shi Liao-liao remembered the doctor mentioning that she was an orphan. How curious it was that she could fathom a mother's feelings. Here, no one knew. If you chose to stay, no one would disturb our lives. The toilet is immaculate, and the toilet paper is the softest. I even procured a sewage truck. You could drive it into the city center if you wished. So, will you stay? Mu Xian murmured, her eyes brimming with anticipation. However, Shi Liao-liao hesitated. Mu Xian had been the kindest person to her since she awakened, carrying her home, providing her with comfortable clothes and warm slippers, and cooking for her. Even if the rice was a tad too soft, apologies. Yet, she still declined. Even she herself was unaware of the reason. Shi Liao-liao had been returned here. Upon her return, she noticed the surroundings seemed quieter than when she had left. Even the sound of the wind was absent. Entering through the front door, she pushed it open and collided into a warm, dry embrace. Covering her nose, she looked up, and through tear-filled eyes, saw a face somewhat resembling Lu Tingfeng's. Her pupils dilated in shock, exclaiming, "Son?" Chapter 107. An hour ago, you managed to find this place. Sat upright on the sofa, sipping coffee, the man, seemingly awaiting this moment, showed no signs of surprise upon seeing Lu Yanzhou kick the door open. Lu Yanzhou didn't even spare him a glance, bypassing him in search of someone. She is not here. Lu Tingfeng successfully halted Lu Yanzhou with that statement. Where is she? Lu Tingfeng regarded his son with a bemused expression. Gone was the naivety of youth, replaced by the elegance of a mature man and the pride inherent to the Lu family. During his absence, his son had adeptly taken over the Lu family, completing his metamorphosis. Likewise, he had inherited the Lu family's intrinsic obsession with their significant other. How can you be certain she remains the same? Perhaps she has assumed a different identity. Lu Tingfeng was quite eager to witness his son's reaction, if Shi Liao-liao's soul had vanished, and the spirit inhabiting her body was that of his long-admired mother. He wondered how Lu Yanzhou would respond. Surprisingly, Lu Yanzhou's expression remained unchanged. He simply rephrased his inquiry. Where is my stepmother? Lu Tingfeng, what on earth? Lu Tingfeng's expression morphed into something peculiar, as though he had just been force-fed something repugnant. You must be mad. Lu Yanzhou nodded. Indeed, later you may find yourself admitted to a psychiatric hospital. He stepped forward, casually adding, do not reside next door to me. Otherwise, I may be unable to refrain from plunging a blade into your carotid artery. The person entering behind him instinctively shuddered upon hearing this. The young master did not find her. A bodyguard approached and whispered. Lu Yanzhou quickly located Shi Liao-liao's room. He circled within, meticulously scanning, as if seeking traces of her existence. The blanket was too thin. Observing the neatly folded bedding on the bed, Lu Yanzhou frowned. Shi Liao-liao feared the cold while sleeping and required a thick blanket to rest soundly. There were also no plush slippers or the stuffed toy she clutched while sleeping. Standing expressionlessly at the bedside, he pondered. Lu Yanzhou made a decision. There would be no need for hospitalization. He would later insert a blade into Lu Tingfeng's carotid artery, akin to when Lu Tingfeng had attempted to slit his throat in a bid for them to depart this world together after his mother had just passed. Young master, we found this. Upon exiting, someone approached and handed him a somewhat twisted hairpin. It was found by the window. That window was locked but was pried open with this. Lu Yanzhou's gaze softened as he looked at the hairpin. It belongs to Shi Liao-liao. She has escaped. Notify the head of the Shi family. Stowing away the object. Lu Yanzhou approached the window, examining it closely before glancing outside. It was not high and there was a water pipe. If it were indeed Shi Liao-liao, she most likely descended via the pipe. Lu Yanzhou turned and departed. If Shi Liao-liao was alone, she would not travel far. Following her trail now should lead to her. He also remembered to call Secretary Shi, instructing him to monitor all nearby streets and the surveillance footage leading to the Lu or Shi families. Lu Yanzhou could not recall how the past few days had unfolded. The moment he learned of Shi Liao-liao's predicament, everyone, including Secretary Shi, perceived him as unnaturally calm. Only Lu Yanzhou himself understood. In that instant, engulfed by overwhelming fear, he was oblivious to what he was saying or doing. Everything was instinctual. He should not have assumed Lu Tingfeng would relinquish her so easily. Even upon seeing his mother's bracelet on Shi Liao-liao, he would not relent. Lu Yanzhou could not fathom what losing Shi Liao-liao would entail. In his youth, when his mother took him to see a play, he scoffed when Romeo, believing Juliet to be dead, resolutely chose to end his own life.
Now.
Lu Yanzhou could scarcely imagine how he would survive without Shi Liao-liao. His heart raced with a frenzied rhythm as he stood before the grand door, an inner voice urging him to hurry, to hasten. Grasping the icy doorknob, he had yet to exert force when the door was abruptly pushed open from the outside. Upon seeing that face, Lu Yanzhou's breath nearly halted, the taut nerves finally relaxing, allowing him to inhale. Without waiting for Lu Yanzhou to assess Shi Liao-liao's condition, the person before him tilted their head, dumbfounded, exclaiming, "Son?" Lu Yanzhou, who is truly lost in their role, grasping her wrist and scrutinizing her. He reached out to touch the tips of her light golden hair, feeling its dampness and catching a whiff of an unfamiliar shower gel scent. Lu Yanzhou frowned. "Where have you been? Is it Yang Qingqing again?" Shi Liao-liao observed his familiar actions, blinking in surprise. "How familiar, I really did end up entangled with my stepson." Just then, her gaze swept over to Lu Tingfeng, and she quickly signaled Lu Yanzhou with her eyes. "Don't be so obvious. Your father is right there. Even though we just divorced, we should still avoid raising suspicions." Watching Shi Liao-liao's exaggerated gestures, Lu Yanzhou furrowed his brow deeply. He pulled Shi Liao-liao closer, turning to face Lu Tingfeng, his voice laced with barely concealed anger. "What have you done to her?" Others remained oblivious. Shi Feng delivered a punch to Lu Tingfeng's face, turning to approach him. The man who had just appeared menacing, akin to a gang leader, now looked nervously at Shi Liao-liao, somewhat flustered. "Liao-liao, are you unwell? What did Lu Tingfeng do to you?" Shi Liao-liao felt no familiarity with the man before her and instinctively raised her hand to deter his approach. "I'm fine, uncle. I just recently divorced Lu Tingfeng." Shi Feng froze for a moment before turning to Lu Tingfeng, his eyes ablaze with fury. "Did you deceive my daughter into marrying you? Lu Tingfeng, do you have no shame? I shall make you soil yourself today." Lu Tingfeng was no pushover either. Having allowed him to strike earlier was merely a matter of choice, but now, to continue was to test his limits. Observing the two middle-aged men embroiled in chaos, Lu Yanzhou exhibited no reaction. Since the onset, his gaze had remained fixated on Shi Liao-liao.
Who am I?
He clasped Shi Liao-liao's icy hands within his own, warming them, while gazing into her eyes. Shi Liao-liao reiterated what the doctor had said. "You are Lu Tingfeng's son. You are my stepson."
Iniest?
There was little to be concerned about, but now that troubles have arisen, the desire to commit patricide has surfaced. "I am the son of Lu Tingfeng. Yet I am not your stepson." Shi Liao-liao was momentarily taken aback. "Then who are you?" "Lu Tingfeng's grandson." Lu Yanzhou grasped her chin, compelling her to look up, and then leaned down to fiercely kiss her. With a look of utter astonishment on Shi Liao-liao's face, she calmly uttered a few words. "I am your husband." Chapter 108. Shi Liao-liao wiped her mouth. "I don't believe you. Show me the marriage certificate." "Lu Yanzhou, you don't demand anything from Lu Tingfeng, yet you have begun to have expectations of me?" Before her stood a remarkably handsome man, particularly accentuated by the small mole beneath his eye. Shi Liao-liao felt an inexplicable urge to reach out and touch it. A strikingly attractive gentleman with a commendable physique. Her gaze caught the crimson veins in his hazel eyes, the fatigue etched in his features, and the pallor of his lips. She added, "You appear to be suffering from kidney deficiency?" "Lu Yanzhou, who is this?" He pulled Shi Liao-liao before Secretary Shi, leaning down to inquire. "Who is he?" Shi Liao-liao briefly assessed the elite man before her. "In 2 minutes. I need to acquire every detail about that woman from the secretary." Secretary Shi, "It seems there are no apparent issues." However, Lu Yanzhou ignored that and fixed his gaze on Shi Liao-liao. "You don't remember, do you?" Shi Liao-liao found herself being embraced in a car. She felt awkward and wanted to struggle, yet when faced with Lu Yanzhou's sorrowful, glistening hazel eyes, her heart inexplicably softened. "Fine, if you wish to hold me, then do so. It would be best if you also held me while I relieve myself at night. You have no connection to Lu Tingfeng." Holding Shi Liao-liao close, Lu Yanzhou buried his head in her shoulder, his voice muffled. The man who had just been brimming with aggression, threatening to plunge a blade into his biological father's arteries, had now shed all hostility, revealing only his softest side in front of the one he cherished. Shi Liao-liao turned to look at him. "But you certainly aren't my husband." Lu Yanzhou suddenly lifted his head, their noses nearly touching, and he offered her a faint smile, unwavering. "I am. I can be your stepson, or I can be your husband. As long as you are here. Any identity is inconsequential." He had lost weight. He caressed her shoulder and tilted his head to kiss her cheek. "Who told you that Lu Tingfeng is your husband?" Lu Yanzhou's tone was laced with temptation, yet his gaze was icy. Shi Liao-liao, languid against him, was fed a sip of warm milk and casually replied, "I don't know who he is, I call him doctor." Lu Yanzhou immediately pinpointed his target. 2 years ago. It was that person's emergence that led Lu Tingfeng down the path of resurrecting his deceased wife. To the hospital. Lu Tingfeng could not possibly remain inactive. He must have done something to Shi Liao-liao, resulting in a failure that altered her memories. Are you truly not my stepson? Shi Liao-liao felt a twinge of regret. Such thrilling drama could air, yet it turns out to be a misunderstanding. Lu Yanzhou, with a stoic face, held her hand, his long eyelashes fluttering, softly calling out, "Little mom." Shi Liao-liao felt her spine weaken at his call. "So, little mom, can you tell me from whose house you just returned?" Lu Yanzhou expertly poked at Shi Liao-liao's vulnerabilities, his hazel eyes innocently blinking, appearing utterly harmless. Shi Liao-liao, indeed, fell for it, unable to resist the temptation to touch the mole beneath his eye. The familiar gesture brought a smile to Lu Yanzhou's eyes. What did amnesia matter? He could make her fall for him once, and he would ensure there would be a second and a third. But in the next moment, Lu Yanzhou's smile faded. "I just returned from my girlfriend's house." The smile at the corner of Lu Yanzhou's lips froze on his face. "Female friend?" Shi Liao-liao thought he hadn't heard clearly and repeated, "It's my girlfriend, not just a female friend." Very well. After only a few days of her being away, he was already entangled with both his ex-wife and a girlfriend. "What are you doing?" Shi Liao-liao felt her chin gripped, forced to turn her head, and met Lu Yanzhou's close gaze, causing her to instinctively retreat. Yet, Lu Yanzhou wouldn't allow her to escape. "Kiss me, and break up with your girlfriend." With that, he leaned in to kiss her. Shi Liao-liao instinctively bit his lip, then pushed him away, breathlessly murmuring, "Wait." She shyly glanced at Lu Yanzhou, her lips a deep crimson. Her entire being blushing from the kiss. It was undeniably alluring. Lu Yanzhou gently brushed his fingertip against her cheek, asking in a hushed tone, "Need to relieve yourself?" "Shi Liao-liao, how did you know? I can't believe you know me so well." Who could distinguish between a stepson and a husband? Lu Yanzhou pinched her cheek playfully, chuckling. "Do you believe me now?" Shi Liao-liao looked at him uncertainly. "How did we meet? Aside from this familiar face, I genuinely can't recall, my friend." Lu Yanzhou gazed at her with gentle eyes, recounting their past without a trace of impatience. "We met at school. You were a year below me. After falling for me at first sight, you pursued me relentlessly, drunkenly embracing and kissing me, confessing your feelings in the dormitory. I was so frightened that I fled, but you were undeterred, refusing to let me evade you. Eventually, I succumbed to your persistence." Lu Yanzhou's beautiful hazel eyes held a hint of melancholy as he whispered in her ear, "You used to be very clingy and liked me a lot. Unfortunately, you remember nothing now." With that, his gaze dimmed, and a sense of desolation filled his features. Shi Liao-liao. "So I was a bit of a stalker back then. I'm sorry, if you don't wish to, we can." "No, you promised you would take responsibility for me." The amnesiac Shi Liao-liao appeared somewhat dazed and easy to deceive. Lu Yanzhou couldn't resist his mischievous side. The young master only revealed such childish and immature aspects of himself in front of Shi Liao-liao after reaching adulthood. "Can I go relieve myself first? I can't hold it anymore." Shi Liao-liao looked at him pleadingly. Lu Yanzhou, finding her expression adorable, leaned down to kiss her eyes. "Tell me who your girlfriend is, and I'll let you go." He then donned an innocent expression. "You forced me to be with you. You must take responsibility." Shi Liao-liao claimed she didn't know her girlfriend's name, only describing her specific appearance. Lu Yanzhou maintained a neutral expression, but internally, he was sneering. Morong Xian should simply change her name to Unyielding Heart. "Can I go relieve myself now?" Just as they reached their destination, Lu Yanzhou released her. However, in the instant he let go, Shi Liao-liao abruptly raised her hand and playfully rubbed Lu Yanzhou's head. After teasing him, she dashed away, clearly premeditated. "You scoundrel! It's evident you are the one who has taken advantage of me." Bending over the car's edge, Shi Liao-liao smiled slyly at Lu Yanzhou, who was in a rather awkward position inside. Chapter 109. Lu Yanzhou gazed at Shi Liao-liao, who displayed that familiar expression, a flicker of dark light crossing his hazel eyes. "You've remembered." Shi Liao-liao looked at Lu Yanzhou, who was in the car with crossed legs, attempting to suppress something. Slowly, she blinked. "No, it's just fragments." Just as Lu Yanzhou was pretending to be pitiful, Shi Liao-liao suddenly recalled that she seemed to be avoiding something, envisioning a scene where she had scheduled a surgery for him. Wait a moment, Lu Yanzhou hadn't he refused back then? Shi Liao-liao abruptly bent down, looking toward Lu Yanzhou in the car. Artificial eggs, never seen before. Completely lost in her train of thought, Lu Yanzhou exclaimed, "How should I explain that this is the original?" "Miss Shi, please follow me." With Lu Yanzhou currently unable to move, 5 bodyguards surrounded them, escorting Shi Liao-liao inside while continually updating Lu Yanzhou. With a myriad of emotions swirling within her, Shi Liao-liao couldn't help but think that she resembled the protagonist of a tale where a woman, once lost amidst a tempest of chaos, was ultimately retrieved by the male lead, who then kept her under his watchful gaze like a precious gem. She glanced down at her abdomen and mused that if she were to conceive once more, the narrative would certainly take on an even more romantic flair. Miss Shi observed the array of instruments in the room with a sense of curiosity, then nodded respectfully to the doctor beside her. "Will I be using all these devices?" she inquired. The nurse who had approached to assist her with a change of clothes affirmed, "Indeed, Mr. Liu has requested a comprehensive examination for you. Even the slightest anomaly, like a mutated nose hair, must be detected." Such were the exact words of Lu Yanzhou at that time. Shi Liao-liao complied readily, for she too was eager to uncover what her ex-husband had done to her body. Previously, she had harbored suspicions. According to the doctors, her condition stemmed from a car accident. Yet upon awakening and thoroughly inspecting herself while bathing, she found not even the faintest scratch. The mere thought of the accident caused a sharp pain to lance through her temples, prompting her to shake her head and extricate her consciousness from the chaotic fragments of her mind. "Miss Shi, are you all right?" The nurse outside, concerned by her prolonged silence, rapped gently on the door. "I'm coming," Shi Liao-liao called out in response. As she was led away, she noticed that Lu Yanzhou had appeared at some point, engaged in conversation with the doctor. The moment she entered the room, his gaze locked onto her immediately. Their eyes met briefly before she cast hers downward. Oh, that was resolved rather swiftly. Those couple of attempts earlier were quite gentle. "Perhaps I should suggest my little stepson visit a urologist?" Before Shi Liao-liao could direct her gaze towards the doctor, Lu Yanzhou stood and approached her, pulling her along. "Let us go inside." Shi Liao-liao turned, puzzled. "Where exactly are we going?" "I'm standing right here." Lu Yanzhou, with a playful flick of his finger, tapped her forehead, attempting to jolt any lingering confusion from her mind. She pressed her palm to her forehead, bewildered. "Unruly child. How dare you tap your stepmother's head?" Watching her walk ahead, Lu Yanzhou thought to himself that it was merely a tap. He could certainly do far worse to his little stepmother. Guided by the nurse, Shi Liao-liao reclined into an unfamiliar machine. "Miss Shi, please relax." She followed the instruction. It was late at night, a time filled with escapades of window dodging and persuading her girlfriend to return her, only to encounter the fabled stepson. With her eyes closed, she succumbed to slumber. In her dreams, she found herself back at her girlfriend's home, where they were embroiled in a dispute over her release. After listening to her, her girlfriend fell silent for an extended period. "Even if you have amnesia, you still can't forget him," she had said, though the rest of her words were lost to Shi Liao-liao. "So, can I leave now?" she had asked herself in that moment. Her girlfriend approached her, unexpectedly embracing her. Shi Liao-liao did not resist, for she caught a glimpse of the reluctance shining in her girlfriend's eyes. Then, her girlfriend spoke a series of incomprehensible words. "I'm sorry, I should not have forgotten you. I created you and gave you fulfillment. I should not have appeared abruptly and intervened in your life." A fragrant kiss brushed against Shi Liao-liao's cheek. "Goodbye, my dear little girl." With that, she faded from consciousness. When she awakened once more, she found herself seated on a bench, her gaze shifting to the building encircled by walls. It was the place she had departed from. Following this, she relived the events from her dream, now observing them from a third-person perspective, uncovering numerous details she had previously overlooked. For instance, the moment she opened the door, the once boisterous lobby fell utterly silent. Moreover, when Lu Yanzhou laid eyes on her, his pupils constricted sharply and his eyes reddened. It seemed as if he wished to reach out, yet his arm fell limp at the utterance of "son." Shi Liao-liao clearly perceived the fleeting confusion and helplessness in his gaze. She thought to herself, so Lu Yanzhou is capable of such expressions, akin to a child who has finally found their home only to discover it has changed beyond recognition. How should one describe it? A touch of pity. It appeared that he truly held affection for her. "Liao-liao?" A comforting fragrance wafted through the air, reminiscent of warm sunshine. Someone was softly calling her name. Shi Liao-liao opened her eyes. She found herself cradled in Lu Yanzhou's embrace, realizing that she was now being held by a man, her own stepson. She squirmed slightly, but upon seeing the flicker of sadness in his chestnut-colored eyes, she stilled. "Go ahead and hold me," she thought resignedly, completely oblivious to the fact that Lu Yanzhou's grip had not loosened in the slightest. This fellow merely feigned weakness, yet remained utterly unaffected in his stubbornness. "We're almost there," he murmured, his voice still laced with drowsiness. "Where to?" Shi Liao-liao inquired. "To another hospital," Lu Yanzhou replied softly. "Must we undergo another examination? Isn't it a bit taxing for the doctors at this hour?" Lu Yanzhou shook his head. "Your mother is there." Realizing he had yet to explain, he continued. "You are the youngest child of the Shi family, recently acknowledged, once more. The car accident was indeed real. In that moment of impact, your mother shielded you with her body, sustaining injuries that led her to the hospital. Although it may be a tad late, I believe you should see her." Upon hearing the unfamiliar term mother, Shi Liao-liao felt a surge of confusion. "Do I have family?" The man she had just fought with, Lu Tingfeng, is your father. Meeting her astonished gaze, Lu Yanzhou smiled gently. "Yes, the one you referred to as uncle." Chapter 110. As the vehicle neared its destination, Shi Liao-liao suddenly spotted something that compelled her to request the driver to stop. "I can go by myself." She declined Lu Yanzhou's offer to accompany her. He responded gently, "Very well, I shall wait for you here." He then turned to instruct the bodyguard to discreetly follow her. Initially, a vagrant who noticed the young girl alone outside contemplated approaching her to extort some money. However, before he could take a step, several burly men appeared, startling him into fleeing, only to be captured. Lu Yanzhou patiently awaited in the car, listening to the bodyguard's reports through his earpiece. Once Shi Liao-liao had left, the tension in his back eased upon hearing the bodyguard's words, and a gentler expression crossed his face, his lips curving into a slow smile. Shortly thereafter, the car door slid open, and Shi Liao-liao emerged, radiating a chill. "Guess what I bought?" she asked with a beaming smile. Lu Yanzhou, playing along, shook his head in feigned confusion. "What did you buy?" Shi Liao-liao, with an air of mystery, produced a bag containing a warm item: roasted sweet potatoes. She laughed as she climbed into the car, thrusting the steaming treat into Lu Yanzhou's hands. "Eat it while it's hot." Lu Yanzhou did not move, merely gazing at her with a questioning look. "Why did you only buy one?" "Because the old man was closing up, and this was the last one left." "I don't want to eat it, you should have it." "You certainly didn't have a proper dinner, did you, you ungrateful child?" For reasons unknown, Shi Liao-liao felt certain that Lu Yanzhou was the type to neglect his meals. Spotting the roasted sweet potato stall earlier had instinctively prompted her to ask the driver to stop. "I can't finish it. I'll share half with you." Lu Yanzhou pretended ignorance, wrapping half of the sweet potato in a napkin and offering it to Shi Liao-liao. She waved her hand dismissively. "I said I wouldn't eat it, you enjoy it." Yet, despite her words, her gaze remained firmly fixed on the half of the steaming, undeniably sweet roasted sweet potato. Lu Yanzhou feigned difficulty, "But I cannot finish this." Seeing his troubled expression, Shi Liao-liao graciously took the food from him. "Very well, overeating might lead to gas, which could tarnish your image. I shall bear half of this burden for you." Lu Yanzhou's eyes curved with a smile. "You are truly kind-hearted." The driver interjected, "Damn it. Sitting in a car worth millions, agonizing over a roasted sweet potato, shouldn't one be more pragmatic?" Noticing how much Shi Liao-liao was enjoying her snack, Lu Yanzhou suddenly pondered. "Where did you acquire the money?" Her phone had been buried in that car accident. It was unlikely that Lu Tingfeng and Mu Xian would remember to give her cash. So, how did Shi Liao-liao procure the roasted sweet potato? After sipping the hot milk Lu Yanzhou had offered, Shi Liao-liao blinked. Just now, a homeless man was dragged away by a few men in black, looking like loan sharks. "I tossed a promissory note into his bowl and borrowed 5 yuan. Lu Yanzhou was taken aback. Shi Liao-liao's face was alight with mischief. The moment she stepped outside, she had noticed those homeless men approaching with ill intentions and had guessed that the men in black were sent by Lu Yanzhou. Of course, one detail was omitted. She had not only taken 5 yuan but had also given the homeless man's blanket to a nearby stray dog. "Stray dog. Thank you, my comrade, for bringing warmth during this frigid winter." Upon arriving at the hospital, Shi Liao-liao did not lean on Lu Yanzhou's outstretched arm but instead exited the car on her own. However, as soon as her feet touched the ground, a strikingly handsome stranger appeared before her. His elongated, phoenix-like eyes were filled with concern and the joy of reunion. Without waiting for Shi Liao-liao to inquire, he enveloped her in a warm embrace. I am so relieved you are safe. Shi Liao-liao, caught in his embrace, pushed against him for a while before Lu Yanzhou softly remarked that they had been holding on too long, prompting them to part. Shi Liao-liao scrutinized the stranger, attempting to deduce his identity. He was undeniably handsome, yet exuded an air of mischief and flirtation reminiscent of a rogue protagonist in a romance novel. Of course, he might also be, apologies, but I currently lack the funds to support a pretty boy. Lu Yanzhou interjected, this is your brother. Pretty boy? Shi Yan exclaimed, perplexed. As he turned to Lu Yanzhou, what is wrong with her? Lu Yanzhou replied gravely, she hasn't had a bowel movement in quite some time. Shi Yan's eyes widened in understanding, no wonder. He then playfully patted Shi Liao-liao's forehead, I hope it hasn't backed up into your brain. Shi Liao-liao retorted, officer. There isn't a sane person here, I'm frightened. Lu Yanzhou quipped, the most irrational one here is you. Jokes aside, upon learning of Shi Liao-liao's amnesia, Shi Yan first inquired whether Lu Yanzhou's father had confronted his own father. Lu Yanzhou confirmed this, and Shi Yan's expression relaxed thereafter. What are the examination results? Shi Liao-liao leaned in to hear. She was unaware when the examination had concluded, let alone the results. Lu Yanzhou remained silent for a moment, for in such circumstances, silence was often the most ominous. What is wrong? Am I terminally ill? Shi Liao-liao's heart raced. The doctor revealed, she merely suffers from slight constipation. Everything else appears normal. Shi Liao-liao gasped. What? I've been unable to relieve myself for days, and it's merely constipation? Shi Yan interjected. Can we address this trivial matter more swiftly? You nearly scared him to death. Yet constipation was indeed a significant issue. He planned to ask the aunt to prepare some laxatives for his sister. As the three walked through the hospital corridor, Shi Liao-liao observed Shi Yan beside her. She realized she had a brother. Mother, father, brother, these titles sounded foreign. Sensing his sister's gaze, Shi Yan turned and smiled, are you hungry? I knew you were coming and prepared some food for you. Shi Liao-liao initially intended to mention her earlier snack of roasted sweet potato but reconsidered, thinking Lu Yanzhou might want some as well, and thus nodded. Feeling a bit guilty for accepting his hospitality, she rummaged in her pocket and handed him something, a token of appreciation. Shi Yan was charmed by his sister's adorable demeanor. What is this? A secret gift for your brother? He couldn't help but glance at Lu Yanzhou, as if to say, look, my sister has prepared a present for me. When he opened his hand, the words Hu Deyu hemorrhoid ointment were clearly visible. Shi Yan. Lu Yanzhou also caught sight of it and turned his head, releasing a soft scoff. A fine gift. You must cherish it. Meanwhile, he silently lamented how this item seemed to be everywhere, as if it were sponsored advertising. Upon reaching the top floor, Shi Yan held the gift and led the two to the furthest room. Shi Liao-liao's steps slowed as she approached. Is she all right? Since learning from Lu Yanzhou that she had been injured while protecting herself, Shi Liao-liao's heart had been in a state of turmoil. Shi Yan draped his arm over her shoulder, gently reassuring her. It's all right. Don't be afraid. Let us go inside. Chapter 112 Mrs. She had been recovering and resting for days, but was now awake, engrossed in a book. Hearing a knock at the door, she assumed it was Shi Yan and instructed the person to enter without lifting her head, expecting her son to nag her about not resting enough. She was surprised by the prolonged silence. Why was it so quiet today? Setting her book aside, Mrs. Shi glanced up. The girl before her had long, light golden hair, her ears and head snugly covered by a fluffy hat. She wore a matching thick coat that, rather than appearing bulky, only accentuated her cuteness. Liao-liao, Mrs. She exclaimed in delight. At the moment their eyes met, Shi Liao-liao felt an unexpected jolt of emotion. It was the first strong emotional surge she had experienced since her amnesia. Your brother told me you were all right. I wanted to come see you, but your father stopped me, claiming I was too immobile. At this point, Mrs. Shi expressed a hint of regret. Setting aside her grievances towards her husband and son, her gaze softened with affection as she looked at Shi Liao-liao.
Come here, let me see you.
Shi Yan reassured her that Shi Liao-liao was fine, just overly drowsy. Are you wearing too many layers? Aren't you hot? As Shi Liao-liao approached her, Mrs. Shi reached out to touch her fluffy coat. Smiling as she asked, are you warm enough? Shi Liao-liao shook her head, not hot, it's quite all right. It's very cold outside. Mrs. Shi was beautiful. Even the pallor of illness could not diminish her allure. Shi Liao-liao shared strikingly similar features. Are you hungry? Would you like something to eat? Shi Liao-liao nodded, expressing her hunger. Mrs. Shi took her hand. Unfortunately, I cannot cook for you at the moment, but I will have someone bring something. What would you like? I suppose your late-night cravings differ from ours. but you cannot eat greasy or spicy foods right now. Shi Liao-liao sat by the bedside, nodding at her words. Anything is fine. Thank you, mother. Good child. Once we are both well. As she spoke, Mrs. Shi's voice faltered. With incredulity, Mrs. She gazed at Shi Liao-liao, her voice trembling. Liao-liao, what did you just call me? Noticing the redness in her eyes, Shi Liao-liao was momentarily stunned. Had she made a mistake? Wasn't it mother? Hesitantly meeting her gaze, Shi Liao-liao repeated, mother. As the last word left her lips, Mrs. She suddenly rose from her pillow, enveloping her in a tight embrace, burying her face in Shi Liao-liao's shoulder as she began to weep.
Liao-liao. I am so sorry. I am so sorry.
Shi Liao-liao was taken aback.
Ah?
Lu Yanzhou never mentioned anything like this would happen. It's all right. After all, I don't remember. Shi Liao-liao patted her back. To her surprise, Mrs. Shi's sobs intensified. Shi Liao-liao's mind raced as she contemplated how to console her. Mother,
Please don't cry.
I have something urgent to tell you. Upon hearing the seriousness in her tone, Mrs. Shi's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that her daughter appears unscathed on the outside, yet harbors some internal ailment? Or perhaps there is an issue with her own health? Forcing back her tears, Madam Shi held her daughter's face with a sense of urgency. You know, regardless of the circumstances, a mother can accept anything. Shi Liao-liao took a deep breath. Mom, actually, I need to use the restroom, she lamented with a pained expression. Having been constipated for several days, she finally felt the urge to relieve herself, albeit a bit untimely. She truly did not want to let this opportunity slip away. Go ahead, sweetheart, Madam Shi replied with a resigned smile. If you can't, there's a bell by the toilet that you can ring to summon someone to assist you. Shi Liao-liao nodded obediently, and before entering, she said to Madam Shi, Mom, I'm with Lu Yanzhou outside, and he hasn't eaten. Could you please save some food for him when it arrives? Madam Shi was charmed by her words. Of course, darling. Feeling bashful at being called darling, Shi Liao-liao smiled. Madam Shi thought to herself that Liao-liao seemed quite caring towards young Lu. As Shi Liao-liao entered the restroom, she mused, I really am a diligent little stepmother. Madam Shi called the two individuals waiting outside into the room, and upon seeing Lu Yanzhou's condition, a fleeting look of sympathy crossed her eyes. Good child, you have suffered these past days. While Madam Shi had never held any disdain for Lu Yanzhou, Shi Yan only released his previous grievances upon seeing Shi Liao-liao. It was Madam Shi, after all, who had never placed blame on him, always embodying gentleness and understanding. I'm fine, Madam, Lu Yanzhou responded with a gentle smile. The servants set the table, and soon after, one of them entered to announce that the meal was ready. Madam Shi looked at Lu Yanzhou. Liao-liao mentioned you hadn't eaten, so I had someone bring food for you. Lu Yanzhou's gaze softened. She is always quite attentive in this regard. Shi Yan glanced around. Where is Liao-liao? Lu Yanzhou thought to himself that she must be in the restroom. Sure enough. The next moment Madam Shi announced, she has gone to the restroom, a rather civilized way of putting it. Shi Yan encouraged Lu Yanzhou to go ahead while he waited. Considering that as an older brother, Shi Yan might have something to say to Shi Liao-liao, Lu Yanzhou kindly agreed. The dining room was in close proximity to the bedroom, and all exits of the hospital, including the water pipes, were under surveillance. If Shi Liao-liao were to go missing again, Lu Yanzhou would simply sell the Lu family estate to the countryside for manure. Shi Liao-liao exited the restroom, feeling quite pleased, only to lift her head and find Shi Yan standing by the door, grinning at her. Do you need to go too? Shi Yan asked. To which he replied that he did not. How much do you remember about your brother? Or do you remember nothing at all? Shi Yan instinctively overlooked the moment when Shi Liao-liao had mistaken him for a gigolo. Shi Liao-liao replied that she remembered nothing at all. Shi Yan took her by the hand and led her to a nearby chair. Shi Liao-liao's expression was complex. Why were there two chairs outside the restroom? It's fine if you don't remember. Brother will tell you all about it. Shi Liao-liao was accordingly drawn along. He naturally handed her a cup of tea. So, where did this tea come from? At that moment, you disguised yourself as a boy at school. Shi Liao-liao suddenly coughed. Disguised as a boy. She waved away Shi Yan's hand that was reaching out to pat her back, incredulous. Shi Yan's affectionate eyes revealed a hint of confusion. Lu Yanzhou didn't tell you? Shi Liao-liao shook her head.
Shi Yan sighed.
It seems he has not been honest with you. He then winked at her mischievously. But don't worry, brother will reveal all the facts. Shi Liao-liao nodded with skepticism. Although it seemed a bit absurd, it was unexpectedly reliable. At that time, you were Lu Yanzhou's little male servant. He enslaved you and even wished to possess you against your will. As someone of a lower status, You had no means to resist him. It was during this time Shi Yan's expression turned serious, that I, unaware of our sibling connection, rescued you from the torment you were enduring. Chapter 113. Shi Liao-liao boldly wrote 2 characters. Do not believe. Shi Yan gestured for her to remain calm. It's alright if you don't remember. Brother does not blame you. Our relationship back then was akin to that of true siblings. You would privately call me brother, and I would call you little brother. Before you eventually became my sister. We often shared late-night heart-to-heart talks, watched the sea at dawn, and returned home together with the first light. We were the epitome of siblinghood in this world. Shi Liao-liao gazed at him with skepticism. I don't remember, Smita. After waiting for a long time, Yanzhou stepped in to save the little male servant, just as Shi Yan recounted how she had been deceived into the infirmary and bullied, and how he had burst in to rescue her by kicking down the door. Yanzhou thought to himself, indeed. Had you not gone, Shi Liao-liao would not have exposed her gender, nor slipped away right under his nose. Aren't you hungry? Yanzhou approached and pulled her up, to which she rose in kind. Brother, are you going? Shi Liao-liao glanced at Shi Yan, who looked mournfully at her, although he wanted to seize the opportunity to chat a bit more with his sister while she was still amnesiac. He felt a twinge of pity at the thought of her hunger. Let us go eat. I'll go remind our mother to rest. Shi Yan gently ruffled Shi Liao-liao's hair. She had just removed her hat, leaving her hair somewhat tousled, and his touch only made it resemble a bird's nest more. Yanzhou approached to help her fix her hair, and as Shi Liao-liao casually handed him her hat, she said, I don't want to wear it anymore. You can have it, big brother. Upon hearing this term of endearment, Yanzhou instinctively turned his head to glance. Fortunately, Shi Yan had already moved away, and the distance was too far for him to hear clearly. Take off your jacket. Didn't you remove it when you went to the restroom? Shi Liao-liao muttered. I was in a hurry. Seeing her flushed face, Yanzhou couldn't help but lean down to kiss her. So adorable. Shi Liao-liao pushed him away. Your uncle is still outside. Yanzhou leaned down to nibble at her lips, his voice muffled. It's fine. Let your uncle know then. Shi Liao-liao wore a complex expression. You rascal, playing such tricks. As he turned to leave, standing at the corner was Shi Yan. If I remember correctly, there shouldn't be a television by the restroom door. Wait a moment. That foolish uncle couldn't possibly be me, could he? Shi Yan suddenly realized something, his expression turning peculiar as he thought. So, I am actually a part of your play. This led to Shi Liao-liao meeting Shi Yan's gaze, who shook his head at her with a complicated expression, as if grieving for a wayward daughter led astray by ruffians. Shi Liao-liao. Yanzhou's lips were still a bit red, and seeing Shi Yan's strange expression, he guessed what was amiss, curling his lips in a teasing manner. Uncle, are you here? Upon hearing this address, Shi Yan's skin crawled. You motherf. The usually playful Shi Yan couldn't help but curse. Shi Liao-liao. So you heard that. After having a late-night snack, Shi Liao-liao was taken back to Yanzhou's home. Weary and mentally exhausted, as she passed through the first floor, her peripheral vision caught something, and her gaze froze. Yanzhou, who had been watching her, noticed her expression and followed her gaze. 2 flower pots were placed side by side. One was a soft pink, while the other featured a striking central pattern. Upon closer inspection, it appeared to be a small swallow, and the branches bore no flowers, just steel wool. Shi Liao-liao inexplicably felt that this object resonated with her aesthetic. It was clearly placed there intentionally, indicating that the owner had a fondness for them. She turned to Yanzhou. Did your ex-girlfriend send these? Yanzhou replied. It was from an ex-boyfriend. He fixed his gaze on Shi Liao-liao, his meaning clear. She removed her hat and stuffed it into his arms. Oh, I see. She appeared completely unfazed.
Thus,
the discovery of Hudayu's hemorrhoid cream in your coat pocket was no mere coincidence. It is a testament to your identity as a gay man. Yanzhou. So that wretched item was extracted from my pocket. Let's settle the endorsement fee. Hudayu, will you be able to sleep soundly tonight? It is entirely normal not to remember. You are but a bold little servant who conceals significant secrets. Yanzhou's lips curled into a sly smile. Shi Liao-liao, you're pointing at me here. The bed was warm, adorned with numerous plush toys, among which was a delightful little swallow at the center. As Shi Liao-liao drifted into slumber, she instinctively embraced it, as she had done countless times before. Her spirit returned to a place of tranquility. She experienced the sweetest sleep since her amnesia. Her biological clock roused her precisely, and as Shi Liao-liao opened her eyes, she heard a knock at the door. Miss, are you awake? It was perfectly timed. A lovely maid entered, smiling as she introduced herself. Shi Liao-liao found her somewhat familiar. Hearing her words, The maid's smile deepened. Descending the stairs, young Master Lu was sipping his coffee while perusing the financial news of the day. Good morning. Upon seeing Shi Liao-liao come down, he set his coffee aside, approached, and placed a kiss on her cheek. Shi Liao-liao rubbed her cheek and tugged at his sleeve. Do you know someone named Gu Shuizhao? The smile at Lu Yanzhou's lips broadened. Why the sudden mention of her? Shi Liao-liao, completely oblivious to the impending danger, replied, I suddenly thought of her this morning. Lu Yanzhou mused. Good. You can recall Gu Shuizhao, yet you have forgotten me. I don't know her. She might be a member of some cult, he said coolly, casting aspersions without batting an eye. Shi Liao-liao pondered. Is that so? The figure that surfaced in her mind did not quite fit that description.
Before we dine.
We have something important to attend to. Shi Liao-liao snapped back to the moment. What? Lu Yanzhou lowered his gaze. All the servants simultaneously set down their tasks and exited. The instant the room was vacated, Shi Liao-liao, bewildered, was pulled over by him. You still owe me a good morning kiss. With that, he leaned in eagerly to kiss her. Fierce yet clingy, Shi Liao-liao began to wonder if she had inadvertently offended him. Just as they were engaged in their kiss, a sudden feminine voice interrupted from outside. Bastard! How could you let a mouse defecate on my head? Shi Liao-liao was startled, nearly spraying her nose on Lu Yanzhou's face. The intrusion clearly displeased young Master Lu. Ignore her. He wrapped his arm around Shi Liao-liao's waist, preventing her from leaving. Shi Liao-liao pushed him gently, saying, I want to see what the commotion is about. Haha, whose pet mouse is defecating on someone else's head? I'm dying of laughter. A cacophony of laughter grated on Lu Yanzhou's nerves. The moment he released her, Shi Liao-liao darted out like the wind. Who is it? Who is it? Who on earth raises a mouse like that? As the thought crossed her mind, the next moment, Shi Liao-liao, you scoundrel.
Come out.
Shi Liao-liao. Chapter 104. Upon stepping outside, Shi Liao-liao encountered a strange girl. Her face flushed with anger, which only enhanced her already striking beauty. Dressed in white, with a short skirt and tall boots, her long legs were captivating. The only incongruous element was the cage she held in her hands. To prevent whatever was inside from freezing, a thick cloth was draped over the cage. Shi Liao-liao. She is truly, I am dying. As she recognized Shi Liao-liao, the girl's expression turned complex. You have changed so much. She furrowed her brow, speaking in an ambiguous tone. Shi Liao-liao was eager to ask why she had called her name earlier, but first, she should adhere to proper etiquette. I had an accident recently and hit my head. I don't remember much. Can you tell me who you are? Bai Liya raised an eyebrow. You don't remember me? Shi Liao-liao nodded earnestly. Bai Liya approached and shoved the cage into her arms, tilting her chin slightly and declaring, I am your ex-girlfriend from your cross-dressing days. Shi Liao-liao. Wonderful. After an ex-husband, a stepson, and a husband, I now have an ex-girlfriend. I was so promiscuous before. You only just realized that? The voice that suddenly echoed in her mind startled Shi Liao-liao. She glanced up, finding Bai Liya merely crossing her arms, silently gazing at her. The voice seemed to resonate directly within her mind.
Who are you?
System? The voice scoffed. I am not. I am a filthy mouse. Shi Liao-liao understood, lifting the thick cloth covering the cage, and immediately spotted the dirty little hamster inside, staring back at her. It seemed somewhat familiar. Wong Wong. A hand reached from behind her, opening the door. The little hamster, with its black bean-like eyes brimming with anger, rushed out, teary-eyed. Yanzhou, I finally get to see you. Shi Liao-liao. Yanzhou? What a cool nickname. Who thought of it? However, just as the hamster was about to dash out, Lu Yanzhou swiftly closed the door. A bit dirty. We shall wash it later, young Master Lu said cheerfully, though a flicker of disdain crossed his tea-brown eyes. Wong Wong felt as if struck by lightning, beginning to question its rodent existence. This is your mouse. Its name is Wong Wong. Knowing she likely did not remember even this, Lu Yanzhou explained. Shi Liao-liao vaguely recalled something. Wong Wong, as in testicles? Lu Yanzhou replied. Thus the name came about. Very well, it shall never be called that again. Bai Liya, who had been ignored since Lu Yanzhou's arrival, now regarded Wong Wong with a different expression. Wong Wong. Oh no, I will never be able to show my face again. The whole world knows my full name is Testicle, what to do, haha. She is Bai Liya, the girlfriend of Yang Qingzhou. Having been enlightened by Lu Yanzhou about the web of relationships, Shi Liao-liao knew who Yang Qingzhou was. Lu Yanzhou gazed at Bai Liya with an unusually gentle expression, giving her goosebumps before leisurely addressing Shi Liao-liao, call her sister-in-law. Being addressed as sister-in-law by someone she once had feelings for was a rather bitter title. Bai Liya nearly ground her back teeth to dust. She would rather endure the indignity of having that hamster, which somehow ended up in her house, defecating on her head than be called sister-in-law by Shi Liao-liao. Just as Shi Liao-liao was about to speak, Bai Liya suddenly commanded, "You, come here." Following her pointed direction, a dog crouched not far away, panting. Upon hearing Bai Liya's voice, the dog expertly trotted over and, in full view of everyone, lifted a leg and began to urinate on Bai Liya's boot. Shi Liao-liao. What the hell? This scene seems oddly familiar, might I ask? Bai Liya nodded. Did you see that?
My boot is dirty.
I must take my leave. With that, she turned and walked away, as if pursued by someone. She even took the dog with her. Yanzhou addressed a nearby servant. Why aren't you going to see Miss Bai off? Appearing quite polite, as if he were not the one standing outside in the winter cold without inviting anyone in for a chat. Taking Shi Liao-liao back, Yanzhou suggested they wash the little mouse together. Your room is stocked with various pet mouse grooming supplies. Yanzhou had already arranged for all her belongings to be moved from the servants' quarters to the room next door, which is why Shi Liao-liao had no recollection of this place. That Bai Liya, just now, it was a bit difficult to utter the words ex-girlfriend. Yanzhou, of course, denied it. She is not. Only then did Shi Liao-liao feel relieved. However, your previous relationship with her is indeed somewhat ambiguous. Yanzhou wore a half-smile. Shi Liao-liao. Very well. Is this a matter meant to be revisited? Aren't you supposed to be heading to the company?
Goodbye.
Yanzhou glanced at his watch and remarked, Indeed, let us depart. At that moment, Shi Liao-liao had just opened the bedside drawer when she heard his words and abruptly turned her head, asking, Am I going too? Yanzhou nodded affirmatively. As he casually extracted items from the drawer, Shi Liao-liao noticed a bundle of glow sticks wrapped in transparent tape. 2 bundles, in fact. Upon seeing the items in her hands, Yanzhou's expression shifted slightly. Those are mine. Shi Liao-liao's first reaction was to question why his belongings were in her room. It seemed Yanzhou could discern her thoughts, as he calmly responded, I sleep here when you're not around. Her gaze toward him morphed into one of incredulity, as if she were scrutinizing a pervert. Yanzhou met her gaze with unwavering composure. I am indeed a pervert. So, what purpose do these serve? Staring at the unattractive glow sticks, Shi Liao-liao found it difficult to conceive of their use. Is it because you fear the dark, to be used in emergencies? She could hardly fathom someone of his stature resorting to such items. To her surprise, Yanzhou suddenly fell silent, the smile that usually adorned his lips vanishing. He stepped closer, gently gripping Shi Liao-liao's chin, compelling her to meet his eyes. You remember now. This was the same phrase he had uttered after she had thoroughly teased him in the car. Shi Liao-liao blinked. No, I was just speaking offhandedly. Yanzhou's fingers moved up to pinch her cheek. Is that so? Then do you recall where we first? Shi Liao-liao's expression stiffened. Of course. It had been in the bathroom of Yang Qingzhou's house, where he had been outside watching gay films. Nonsense. We were nowhere near that stage. You, in your innocence, thought that my massage meant I wanted to have sex with you, and it left you stuttering. A deeper smile graced Yanzhou's lips. He had not stuttered. It appeared she had indeed forgotten. Shi Liao-liao nodded eagerly. Yes, yes. Then let us go to the company together. His fingers playfully slid near her ear. The bed at the office is soft and inviting. You might just recall something. Chapter 115. Shi Liao-liao indeed remembered, yet the recollection remained fragmented. It occurred the instant she was bathing the little one. Oh, you Shi Liao-liao. Now that you are sophisticated, you leave me, a mouse, to wander in the wild. As she touched the little one's body, the previously hazy fragments of memory seemed to receive guidance, automatically piecing together a complete image. This included the scene of the car accident, which would send her into a throbbing headache upon reflection, the moment she had shielded her, along with her cries for help, vividly replaying in her mind. Then, recalling the amnesiac version of herself mistaking Lu Tingfeng for her ex-husband, alongside the image of her bloodied mother, she felt an urge to tear him to shreds. Where have you locked Lu Tingfeng away? Gazing at the man who was practically glued to her, Shi Liao-liao nudged the stepmother-turned reality into action. He had originally been resting with his eyes closed but lifted his lids lazily at her question. What brings about this sudden inquiry concerning your ex-husband? Shi Liao-liao could surmise that he was feeling jealous over the non-existent hemorrhoids. To be jealous over Lu Tingfeng, who was, after all, his biological father. You say I crashed because of him. Am I not entitled to seek him out for retribution? Lu Yanzhou studied her for a few seconds, and upon not hearing any inner thoughts, he finally believed her. Nevertheless, given Shi Liao-liao's character, it would be unusual for her not to settle a score. I will take you to see him shortly. After saying this, he added in a low voice, do not insert anything inexplicable into his backside. Shi Liao-liao innocently blinked. What are you talking about?
I don't understand.
Insert it into his backside? What a joke. Where's the fairness in that? Lu Yanzhou thought to himself, let Lu Tingfeng fend for himself. Lu Tingfeng's treatment was rather dismal. Confined in a windowless room. Initially, Lu Yanzhou had intended for him to kneel before his mother's spirit, but later reflected that this might not truly serve as a punishment for Lu Tingfeng. He was bound hand and foot with iron chains. Clad in the wrinkled clothes Shi Liao-liao had seen him in during their last encounter, his face marred with injuries from the west wind. The image starkly contrasted with the spirited man she had first met upon arriving at the Lu household.
It's you.
Hearing the noise, Lu Tingfeng lifted his head, squinting against the long-awaited light before lowering it again. Lu Yanzhou did not permit Shi Liao-liao to enter alone. After all, her previous encounters had all been at Lu Tingfeng's hands, and even in captivity, he remained a formidable presence. Aunt Su has entrusted me with a matter. I am here to fulfill her wish. Upon hearing this, Lu Tingfeng, who had been staring vacantly at the ground, abruptly raised his head to look at Shi Liao-liao. His eyes wild, his face contorting. So the soul transfer was successful. What did she tell you to convey to me? Did she ever profess her love for me?
Speak.
Tell me. At the mention of Su Wanyu, he transformed into a madman. To Shi Liao-liao, it was somewhat pitiful. Lu Yanzhou stood beside her in a protective manner, having been slightly startled when he comprehended her words, though not nearly as agitated as Lu Tingfeng.
Shi Liao-liao,
witnessing his frenzied state, took a step forward and said, she said she wants to build a toilet on your head. Lu Yanzhou remarked, what a vicious insult. Lu Tingfeng was momentarily stunned. What did you say? It was neither love nor hate, merely an utterly perplexing statement. Was this what one you wished to communicate? After days without a drop of water, the man who had previously appeared excited, like a demon catching a whiff of flesh, seemed to have all strength drained from him. Collapsing to the ground. Observing his soulless demeanor, Shi Liao-liao turned to Lu Yanzhou, whose expression remained unchanged. Shall we go? He didn't even inquire about the specifics of the situation. With her aim achieved, Shi Liao-liao contemplated a detailed plan for constructing a toilet atop Lu Tingfeng's head, nodding in agreement. All right. She was not lying about this. She had once dreamt of encountering Lu Yanzhou's mother's spirit, during which she had mentioned she was looking for a toilet. The spirit had generously pointed the way, indicating it was right above Lu Tingfeng's head. However, as she was still an amnesiac, such past events were not to be disclosed. Aren't you curious? Shi Liao-liao turned to Lu Yanzhou multiple times, unable to resist asking. Lu Yanzhou tilted his head to regard her, and then suddenly broke into a radiant smile. I am curious, but I would prefer to wait for you to share it willingly. Young Master Lu's smile was captivating, his tea-brown eyes glistening with a shimmering light, causing the small mole beneath his inner eye to appear alluring. Indeed, the term alluring could also describe a man. In the days following Shi Liao-liao's incident, Lu Yanzhou had nearly turned day into night, his expression perpetually stern. Even after her return, his smile remained faint. Therefore, when she suddenly beheld such a brilliant smile, Shi Liao-liao found herself dazedly remarking, it has been a long time since I've seen you so joyfully smile. Lu Yanzhou responded, that familiar line. Though I cannot hear your thoughts, I can surmise that you may be regaining your memories. Just as the final word left Shi Liao-liao's lips, a mechanical voice suddenly echoed in her mind. Ding! Congratulations, host, you have illuminated the achievement. It has been a long time since I've seen you so joyfully smile. Shi Liao-liao mused, had I known this contraption was so easily activated, I should have spoken more during the early days of Lu Yanzhou's pursuit. What's wrong? Noticing her dazed expression and silence, Lu Yanzhou pinched her earlobe. The employees passing through the corridor quickly averted their gazes, exchanging astonished looks at each other as they read the shock on one another's faces. Goodness. Xiao Luzong typically wears a smile that belies a profound sense of detachment, replete with an air of superiority. Yet it is astonishing to discover his tender side reserved for his fiancée. What a remarkable contrast. Shi Liao-liao noticed the presence of several onlookers and thought to herself, it's nothing. I'm merely contemplating matters related to school. She should have reported to school by now, but an unforeseen incident had delayed her. What if she fell behind and had to repeat a year? Lu Yanzhou's tea-brown eyes flickered with a moment of light as he gently reassured her, "There's no rush. Once everything settles down, I will accompany you." He then leisurely added, "You 1T failure courses." Shi Liao-liao was left in a state of bewilderment. "So confident? You speak as if you are my teacher." On the afternoon following Madame Shi's discharge from the hospital, Shi Liao-liao made her way to school. At that moment, she reflected on how liberating the atmosphere felt without Lu Yanzhou's constant presence. However, it wasn't long before her naivety led her to pay a hefty price. Chapter 116. Do you really not need your mother to accompany you? Madame Shi, arriving in a wheelchair to send Shi Liao-liao off, resembled a mother seeing her child off on the first day of kindergarten, brimming with concern. Shi Liao-liao felt no irritation at this display of affection. "It's all right, mother. I can manage on my own." Shi Yan, who was helping to push the wheelchair, quietly suggested, "What if my brother disguises himself as a girl to accompany you?" St. Duns had already progressed to the third year, with most students having entered their family businesses, while a few opted to break away and start their own ventures or pursue studies abroad. Even the top students sought internships, leaving very few within the school. Shi Liao-liao silently observed her brother, who stood at an impressive height of over 6 feet. Though he inherited their mother's delicate features, his physique was entirely reminiscent of their father, Shi Feng. Noticing her evident displeasure, Shi Yan reluctantly dropped the subject. Had he not been preoccupied with cleaning up Lu Tingfeng's mess, he would have likely suggested accompanying her himself. "If any female classmates doodle on your desk or tear your textbooks, don't be afraid. Even if it comes to blows, I will handle it for you." He expressed his concern, having recently watched numerous films about school bullying, completely oblivious to the fact that his sister was quite the fierce one, having once shoved an umbrella into someone's backside. Shi Liao-liao relished this unprecedented display of familial affection, patiently listening to his words and nodding from time to time. Ultimately, it was Madame Shi who interrupted Shi Yan. "All right, it's getting late. You can't let your sister spend her first day at the new school loitering at the entrance." She patted Shi Liao-liao's hand tenderly, saying, "If you encounter any trouble, don't hesitate to consult with your father, mother, or brother. If you face the situations your brother mentioned, seek out Yanzhou. He is quite sensible. Kill someone? Where would such a convenient opportunity come from? Anyone who dares to bully my daughter will find their entire family behind bars." Madam, she smiled gently, yet her thoughts wandered elsewhere. Upon hearing Lu Yanzhou's name, Shi Liao-liao did not overthink it. In retrospect, she deeply regretted not pursuing the matter further. When she finally arrived at the classroom with her schedule, she discovered that the students were all exiting. She stopped a girl and inquired, "Isn't at class time?" The girl, slightly flushed, as if reminiscing about something, softened her expression upon realizing Shi Liao-liao was the new student. The class content was completed, so the teacher dismissed us early. He doesn't strictly adhere to the schedule. Shi Liao-liao thought to herself that this was rather capricious. As the girl walked away, she could still faintly hear her discussing with a companion, lamenting how it was a pity that Shi Liao-liao already had a fiancé. She only had this one class in the morning. Ultimately, it was her own tardiness that had caused her to miss out. With a sigh, before she could turn away, a voice called out from behind her, "Shi Liao-liao?" The female voice sounded somewhat familiar, and upon turning, she found herself face to face with a familiar visage. Everything about her, hair, makeup, was meticulously crafted, and she wore the same school uniform as Shi Liao-liao, albeit in a higher grade level. It was Bai Liya. As she observed the other girl, Bai Liya was also scrutinizing her. Although the school imposed no restrictions on students' hairstyles or colors, Shi Liao-liao had returned to her preferred black hair, cutting off the longer locks she had previously worn. Her hair had grown to just above her ears, presenting a distinctly feminine appearance, with no trace of her former self. Only her pair of cold, expressionless black eyes remained unchanged. Bai Liya's eyes flickered. Just then, Shi Liao-liao greeted her, "Sister-in-law, hello." Bai Liya's lips twitched, inwardly cursing Lu Yanzhou for her poor choice in selecting him as a stepping stone for her family's resurgence. "Very well, sister-in-law, is it? I suppose Lu Yanzhou has never met a sister-in-law like you." This thought made Bai Liya's lips curve into a natural smile. The girl who had just moments ago displayed a sour expression suddenly approached with a smile and linked arms with Shi Liao-liao. "You must still be unfamiliar with this place. Come, sister-in-law, let me show you around the campus." Shi Liao-liao was taken aback by her sudden warmth, feeling a chill run down her spine. She had never seen Bai Liya smile like this before. As she pondered how to decline, a voice from behind interrupted her. Are you a classmate of Shi Liao-liao? Shi Liao-liao turned around, as if she had found a lifeline. I am. Standing behind her was an unfamiliar girl, who wasted no time in stating, "You were absent from this class. The professor wants you to visit his office for a discussion." Shi Liao-liao had yet to respond when Bai Liya interjected, "It's her first day here." Given that Bai Liya was a senior, the girl's tone softened somewhat. "But that's not something I can decide. You should go speak with the professor. Perhaps he won't count it as an absence." Bai Liya furrowed her brow, wanting to pursue which professor it was, but Shi Liao-liao interrupted, "I'll go just this once. After all, I was late. If I don't, the professor might think I'm deliberately trying to embarrass him." Bai Liya had initially wanted to accompany her, but a member of the student council arrived looking for her. Although the Bai family was not as prominent as before, Bai Liya had made a name for herself through hard work and good relationships, especially with Yanzhou, which had strengthened their family's ties. She was currently preparing to run for the next student council president, leaving no room for error. While the Lyra Girls' School did not experience bullying as severely as St. Dunn's, class distinctions were still stark. Observing this, Bai Liya took Shi Liao-liao's phone from her pocket, unlocked it using facial recognition, and inputted her own number while craftily labeling it as "Dear Sister-in-law. Feel free to call me if you need anything." Shi Liao-liao smiled back at her, saying, "Thank you." Regardless of circumstances, being friends with Bai Liya, as long as their interests did not conflict, was rather enjoyable. Upon hearing her gratitude, Bai Liya let out a playful hum, flicked her long hair, and walked away with her companions. The student who had originally delivered the message had not left yet, so Shi Liao-liao inquired about the professor's office location. The girl kindly shared an electronic map with her. Following the route, Shi Liao-liao zoomed in on the map and discovered that the professor had a single office. It seemed quite spacious. An image of a dignified, serious elderly face flashed through her mind. "I wonder if the professor will be willing to give me a makeup lesson after our discussion," she murmured softly, adjusting her posture before knocking on the door. In the next instant, a voice from within called out, "Please come in." Shi Liao-liao hesitated for a moment at the doorknob. Wait a minute? That voice. It sounds somewhat familiar. Chapter 117. As she pushed open the door, Shi Liao-liao clung to a flicker of hope, telling herself that it was improbable for Yanzhou, a mere student himself, to become a teacher. However, this self-reassurance quickly dissipated upon encountering the figure seated behind the expansive desk. The man, adorned with silver-rimmed glasses, wore a crisp white shirt paired with a waistcoat. Half of his hair elegantly swept up, revealing his exquisite brow and eyes. His warm, chestnut-hued gaze, obscured slightly by his lenses, lent him an air of sharpness that made him seem somewhat unapproachable. As she entered, the man's attention shifted from his computer to her. "Sure, classmate." The address felt strangely distant, reminiscent of the previous night when the seemingly carefree Lu Xiaoyi had insisted on staying in her bed, clinging to her as if abandoning his pretense of being a mere student. I see. Pretending not to recognize me, are we?" Shi Liao-liao replied, her expression rife with feigned trepidation as she approached. "Teacher, I apologize for my tardiness on my first day. I am still unfamiliar with everything." Upon hearing her explanation, Lu teacher nodded with an understanding demeanor, yet his words cut sharply. "Oh. From another perspective, sure classmate, being late on your first day suggests you hold me your teacher in low regard." He pointedly tapped the desk, delivering his reprimand without mercy. "Knowing it's your first day and that you are unfamiliar with your surroundings, why didn't you leave earlier to account for the unknown and the unexpected? Even a 5-year-old knows they cannot be late for kindergarten. Does your sense of time fall short of that of a child?" Shi Liao-liao lowered her head, guilt washing over her. "Teacher, it was my fault." Lu teacher remained stern, asserting, "Mistakes must be met with consequences. This is the first lesson a teacher imparts." "I understand, teacher. I'll write additional essays if needed," she responded earnestly. "Now, come here." Lu Yanzhou interjected, his commanding tone interrupting her. Observing his chiseled features, Shi Liao-liao obediently circled the long table to stand beside him. "Now sit on my lap," he ordered again. Shi Liao-liao hesitated. "Teacher, that seems inappropriate." Lu Yanzhou's expression remained serious. "Sure, classmate, are you refusing to heed my instructions?" In a fluster, she waved her hands. "No, teacher, I will listen." After biting her lip nervously, she tremblingly took a seat on his lap. Observing the rigidity in her posture, Lu Yanzhou's eyes behind the lenses twinkled with amusement. When Shi Liao-liao finally looked up, his expression reverted to one of stoic indifference. "Now wrap your arms around my neck," Lu teacher commanded once more. With no option to retreat after having taken the first step, she opened her arms to embrace the neck of her young, handsome teacher. Seizing the opportunity presented by the willing girl, Lu Yanzhou lowered his head to capture her lips. Shi Liao-liao's long eyelashes fluttered, her expression a mixture of endurance and fear. As Lu Yanzhou's fingers caressed her cheek, he issued another firm command. "Open your mouth." Obediently, she slightly parted her crimson lips. Just as Lu Yanzhou was about to advance, the previously compliant girl mischievously blinked at him. With a sharp intake of breath, Lu Yanzhou retreated slightly, covering his lips. Shi Liao-liao seized the moment to leap off, snatch his glasses, and tease the mole below his eye. "What's wrong, Lu teacher?" she inquired playfully. Lu Yanzhou cast her an exasperated glance, the prior air of dominance dissipating. "You drew blood. It hurts." Shi Liao-liao playfully pinched his cheek. "Serves you right. Who told you not to inform me that you were teaching here? You had me on edge the entire way." Lu Yanzhou took hold of her hand, his tone languid. "Is that so? You were so on edge that you managed to eat roasted sweet potatoes, 3 jellies, and a serving of candied chestnuts before coming up. How the hell do you know that?" she exclaimed. Lu Yanzhou merely smiled, his silence speaking volumes. Suddenly, a thought struck Shi Liao-liao, and she peered at him with curiosity. "So, do those people who secretly protect me report back to you about everything I do?" Lu Yanzhou shook his head. "Not quite." Intrigued, she leaned down to plant a gentle kiss on his cheek. "Come on, Yanzi, just tell me." In response, Lu Yanzhou pulled her back and kissed her fervently several times before delicately wiping her lips with a handkerchief, his demeanor unhurried. "It's the surveillance cameras." He turned the screen to reveal the ancient sycamore tree below. "All right then, if you're going to have someone monitor me, I might just have to consider breaking up with you," she quipped. Lu Yanzhou smiled innocently. "This is yours back." As he pressed her back onto his lap, Shi Liao-liao noticed a new purple bracelet adorning her wrist, with a small bird charm. "I thought I lost it. I searched for ages," she exclaimed. It was the first meaningful gift Lu Yanzhou had given her, and she cherished it dearly. After being taken by Lu Tingfeng, the chain had loosened, and it took some time to repair. Seeing her tenderly caressing the bracelet, Lu Yanzhou's gaze softened further. "I promise I won't lose it again," Shi Liao-liao declared earnestly. He smiled gently. "I believe you." After a few moments of intimacy, Shi Liao-liao recalled her free afternoon and was about to ask Lu Yanzhou for additional lessons when he suddenly interrupted. "Grandpa Wen and Wen Xiaoliang came to Xingdun looking for you a few days ago because they couldn't reach you." Shi Liao-liao was taken aback. Grandpa Wen came too. Having consistently sent parcels to the Wen family and maintained phone contact, she had neglected to update them since leaving Xingdun. "Are they still in a city?" she queried, her concern evident. Lu Yanzhou assured her not to worry. "I informed them that you were selected for an important project due to your outstanding grades and that you are in a completely closed environment, unable to contact the outside world. I assured them you would return in a few days, so I arranged for them to stay in a property near Xingdun." Feeling grateful for their considered arrangement, Shi Liao-liao expressed, "Thank you, young master." Upon hearing the long-absent title, Lu Yanzhou raised an eyebrow. "So, you remembered." "Remembered what?" she replied, feigning ignorance. Lu Yanzhou nodded. "That's fine. The massage we had scheduled can be replaced with something else." "Well, it seems you also don't recall our previous agreement." "No worries. There's no time like the present. Let us keep our appointment for tonight." Shi Liao-liao was left speechless. When did I ever say such a thing? Wait. I want to see Grandpa Wen and Xiaoliang. Chapter 118. Had Shi Liao-liao not fled swiftly, she would have indeed found herself dragged by Lu Yanzhou to fulfill that ridiculous agreement. Hiding in the restroom, she adjusted her clothing in front of the mirror, reflecting on how she had only mentioned a massage. How could that dirty Yanzi take advantage of her amnesia to twist it into something else? The recent alliance between the Shi and Lu families had caused quite a stir, but the fervor had only recently begun to settle. Just when she thought the waves had calmed, both families released their engagement photos, reigniting the excitement. Whoever claimed she was a Cinderella was sorely mistaken. Miss, she was strikingly beautiful, practically glowing. Was this what a marriage of convenience in a novel looked like? Rumor had it that Lu Yanzhou had fallen for Miss Shi even before she was reclaimed.
What?
Was this not a fairy tale come to life? She was certainly captivated. Tonight's dreams would be filled with this script. Completely oblivious to the online uproar, Shi Liao-liao had dyed her long hair back to black and, with the discreet protection of the Shi and Lu family's bodyguards, encountered no trouble during her journey. Grandpa Wen, Upon her arrival, she found Grandpa Wen amusing himself with the birds in the cage. The birds were sent by Lu Yanzhou some time ago, their rarity delighting the elder gentleman immensely. In fact, fearing that Grandpa Wen might not have the chance to see anyone upon his return to the countryside, he also arranged for an assortment of antiques to be sent for the elder's amusement. The old steward, who had worked for the Liu family, was unable to bring his grandson to his side. Hence, during her childhood, Shi Liao-liao spent most of her time growing up in the company of Grandpa Wen. After the passing of the old steward, the Wen family, especially the two elders, had been of immeasurable support to her, and she regarded them as her own family. As she approached, Grandpa Wen's gaze seemed momentarily lost in thought. Unlike others, he had watched Shi Liao-liao grow up, always perceiving her as a boy, a notion deeply ingrained in his mind. But now, as she walked toward him, she was unmistakably a girl. Aside from her face, everything else, the hairstyle, height, attire, and even her voice, seemed foreign. Yet, the old gentleman did not reveal his emotions, instead greeting her with a warm wave. "You've come." His tone was affectionate as ever. Though Grandpa Wen concealed his feelings adeptly, Shi Liao-liao felt a tinge of discomfort. "Grandpa Wen, I've been rather busy lately. My phone broke, and I didn't get a chance to contact you and Xiaoyang," she explained. Grandpa Wen waved her off. "Young people have their own affairs to attend to. I am not an empty nest elder." He then appraised the girl before him and remarked with a smile, "You look splendid as a girl, truly beautiful." It was uncertain how Lu Yanzhou had explained her years of cross-dressing to the old man, but seeing no signs of disapproval from Grandpa Wen, Shi Liao-liao felt a wave of relief. It was, however, Xiaoyang who reacted more dramatically.
Shi.
"After all these years, you've managed to keep this from me." After his initial outcry, upon clearly seeing the girl as attire, Xiaoyang found himself momentarily at a loss for words. "No, I can't call you Shirgo anymore," he stammered, a flush creeping across his face. Faced with Shi Liao-liao's teasing gaze, he suddenly found himself at a loss for words. The brother had transformed into a sister. Who could withstand such a revelation? Although she looked quite lovely, the more he looked, the redder his face became, prompting him to turn away, stealing glances at her from the corner of his eye. Grandpa Wen could no longer bear the sight and came over to tug at his ear. "Look at you, acting so timid." Oh, good Grandpa, don't pull," he pleaded with a wry smile, casting a desperate glance at Shi Liao-liao for rescue. Pretending not to notice, she busied herself with the old gentleman's newly acquired birds. "All right, go pack your things. We must return to the town tonight." So soon? It had been a while since they had seen each other, and Shi Liao-liao felt a pang of reluctance. "The shop isn't busy. Can't we stay a few more days?" Grandpa Wen waved his hand dismissively. No. We can't stay. The chickens and ducks at home will go hungry." Xiaoyang obediently went to gather his belongings, having taken leave from school. It was fortunate his grades were not stellar, his heart was set on antiques, otherwise Grandpa Wen would not have permitted him to accompany them. Once he left, the old gentleman's demeanor turned serious. "Liao-liao, tell me truthfully, how is your relationship with that young master from the Liu family? Is it genuine affection? Or are you being coerced by the Shi family?" Grandpa Wen held a strong disdain for the Shi family. When the elder Shi had to leave home for work, little Shi Liao-liao, who seemed not very bright, had been chased by ferocious dogs and bullied by mischievous children, even subjected to the taunts of a gossiping neighbor who took delight in reminding her of her orphan status. Where were the Shi family during those times? Understanding that Grandpa Wen's concern stemmed from love, Shi Liao-liao did not wish to burden him further. "Grandpa, rest assured, even before our engagement, I was already with Lu Yanzhou." Though she had not yet formally agreed at that time, they had been together nonetheless. A little fib about the timeline would not hurt. Moreover, if she were to recount Lu Yanzhou's calculated endeavors to win her over, Grandpa Wen might very well hurl a couple of expletives at the young master's handsome visage. Having shared everything she could, including the Shi family's kindness toward her, she finally observed a semblance of satisfaction on Grandpa Wen's face and breathed a sigh of relief. "You are a girl now, thus you can no longer attend St. Dawn. What plans do the Shi family have for you?" Shi Liao-liao explained that she was now a part of the neighboring Lia girls' school. After spending some time together and savoring the duck soup the old gentleman had prepared, Shi Liao-liao personally saw them off to the airport. Upon exiting the airport and getting into the car, Shi Liao-liao lifted her gaze and suddenly found herself captivated by a pair of laughing chestnut-brown eyes. "Teacher Liu, have you come to pick me up?" Lu Yanzhou reached out and pulled her closer. "You needn't call me teacher outside of school." Shi Liao-liao blinked. "Then what should I call you?" Should I call you husband? Lu Yanzhou replied, that wouldn't be out of the question. What do you wish to call me? He twirled a strand of her black hair between his fingers, his voice low and enticing. Shi Liao-liao pondered for a moment. Old deng. Lu Yanzhou withdrew his hand. Let us reserve that title for my father. Upon mentioning the word father, his expression faltered slightly, but quickly returned to normal, ensuring that Shi Liao-liao noticed nothing amiss. After a long separation from family, such matters were best set aside, lest they disturb her spirits. Thus, by the time Shi Liao-liao learned of Lu Tingfeng's demise, it was already long past the mourning period. Chapter 119. Lu Tingfeng is dead? Madame Shi, like Shi Liao-liao, only discovered this news much later. Clearly, the head of the Shi family, like Lu Yanzhou, did not wish to disrupt his beloved's good mood with such tidings. Yes. By the time our people sensed something was amiss, he had already passed. Ever since she learned that Mu Xin's visit was to aid Lu Tingfeng in seeking a soul-switching secret, Madame Shi was almost driven to the hospital a second time out of anger. If such a secret were truly effective, why wouldn't her own family use it? Almost immediately after learning of this matter, Madame Shi ordered the destruction of all ancestral documents hidden in the storage room. When Lu Tingfeng seized Shi Liao-liao, he had eagerly insisted on her being placed on the operating table to implement the secret, but he would never comprehend that the so-called soul-switching technique was merely a whimsical fabrication she had concocted while bored at her aunt's house at the age of 10, mimicking her ancestors' handwriting. How did he die? Although Shi Liao-liao had already heard the details from Lu Yanzhou, she remained silently seated beside Madame Shi, listening to the tale anew. He strangled himself with a chain. Madame Shi was momentarily stunned. The instinct for survival is innate in all living beings. To deliberately use a chain to take one's life speaks volumes of the depth of despair one must feel. I heard your brother mention that Yanzhou took you to see Lu Tingfeng. Did you say anything to him then? According to the timeline, Lu Tingfeng had taken his life the day after Shi Liao-liao left. Shi Liao-liao recalled her visit to the restroom. She hadn't anticipated that before she could act, Lu Tingfeng would already be gone. No, she ultimately denied after some thought. Seeing her response, Madame Shi felt a bit more at ease. Although Lu Tingfeng had brought his own demise upon himself, it was best that her daughter remained unassociated with such matters. Upon hearing Lu Yanzhou's name, Shi Feng snorted twice. Madame Shi cast him a helpless glance. This man still held a grudge after all this time. Enough. Why do you blame Yanzhou for what old Lu did? She then turned to Shi Liao-liao with a sigh. Your father is truly something else. As he ages, he has become more petty. Men are often reluctant to admit their age. Just as Shi Feng was about to demonstrate pull-ups for the mother-daughter duo, Shi Liao-liao claimed she needed to study and swiftly made her exit. Of course, it wasn't merely an excuse. She genuinely intended to study. Shi Liao-liao was determined. Having excelled at St. Dawn, she aimed to maintain her standing in the new school, which, though similar in major, had slight differences in subjects, compelling her to exert even more effort. Unlike her time as a maid, Shi Liao-liao now found herself unburdened by work, blessed with ample time for study, and naturally, she cast aside the thoughts of young Master Lu. Lu Yanzhou understood her well. He did not insist on her company, but instead took on the role of a considerate host, serving her tea and an array of pastries and fruits. When he was present, he quietly occupied himself nearby, occasionally glancing at her, and if he noticed her fatigue, he would gently remind her to take a break. His attentiveness was commendable, almost as if he were prepared to cater to her every need, which somewhat softened the ire of Shi Feng. Yang Qingzhou was set to become engaged to Bai Liya, and before the event, he had invited them for dinner. Do you wish to attend? He inquired, as he gently massaged Shi Liao-liao's stiff shoulders. It's perfectly fine if you don't want to go. Shi Liao-liao was taken aback by the rapidity of their engagement. So soon? She remarked. Lu Yanzhou simply nodded. Who would have thought that Yang Qingzhou is a romantic at heart? I'll be free after my exams this weekend, she replied. Lu Yanzhou leaned down and placed a tender kiss on her noticeably thinner cheek. Good. In suggesting this outing, Lu Yanzhou had his own motives. Although Shi Liao-liao's abilities had clearly surpassed the passing mark, she remained unsatisfied with herself. Unable to persuade her otherwise, he sought to provide a means for her to relax. Shi Feng was aware of the affairs concerning the Yang family and, upon hearing Shi Liao-liao's account, decisively chose to release her. After all, such social connections were immensely beneficial for her, even if he harbored reservations about his future son-in-law. On the evening of the weekend, at a gathering of familiar faces, Shi Liao-liao donned casual attire instead of formal, whereas she accompanied Lu Yanzhou. Is Yang Qingqing not coming back? she asked, recalling that their last conversation had been 2 weeks prior. A deeper smile graced Lu Yanzhou's lips. I doubt Qingqing will return. Didn't he mention that to you? Shi Liao-liao felt a shiver run down her spine at the implication. She turned sweetly to Lu Yanzhou. You jest, young master. We rarely keep in touch. Perhaps unbeknownst to her, during moments of anxiety, she tended to refer to him as young master. Oh, is that so?
Yanzhou feignait de surprise.
Fearing he would linger on this topic, Shi Liao-liao hastily added, my brother said he would arrive later. I'll go inform young Qingzhou and have a word with Bai Liya. It was as though she feared Lu Yanzhou would consume her in front of everyone if she were late. Watching her flit away, despite having just complained about her choice of footwear, Lu Yanzhou mused that while she could evade initial scrutiny, she could not escape the inevitable. He then instructed a nearby servant to deliver the newly arrived shoes to her. This gathering was a private affair, with nearly all friends from their circle in attendance. They were perceptive enough to wait until Shi Liao-liao had departed before offering their greetings. Young Master Lu is fortunate. His fiancée is quite exquisite, they jested. Lu Yanzhou smiled gently. Indeed, she is beautiful. He received every compliment regarding Shi Liao-liao with open arms, showing no humility. While engaged in conversation, a maid carrying champagne inadvertently collided with Lu Yanzhou. He caught her arm with a swift, gentlemanly motion, deftly guiding her away. A gasp escaped her lips as she fell, and the onlookers frowned, their expressions reflecting disapproval at the maid's lack of decorum. After a brief moment of wailing, a bodyguard responsible for the safety of the young ladies promptly escorted her away. Observing the maid being removed, Lu Yanzhou casually passed his drink to a nearby guest. I have a minor issue to attend to. If my fiancée inquires, please inform her that I've gone to the restroom. With that, he departed. The messenger, who had initially worried that Shi Liao-liao might suspect something, found her merely waving. He went to relieve himself. Thank you, I'm aware. The messenger was momentarily caught between sympathy for Lu Yanzhou and envy for his situation. Meanwhile, Lu Yanzhou purposefully navigated around the building, evading the servants, and swiftly arrived at his destination. After exerting considerable effort to have a message relayed, he confronted the girl seated by the pool, her bare feet splashing in the water. Lu Yanzhou crossed his arms, a sardonic smile gracing his lips. What do you want? Hearing his voice, the girl dipped her feet further into the pool and turned her head languidly. I simply wished to see my son, she replied. At her words, the smile vanished from Lu Yanzhou's face.
Who are you?
Chapter 120. Rising to her feet, the girl approached Lu Yanzhou, leaving a trail of water in her wake. He instinctively took a step back, his brow furrowing in distaste. Although the servants had cleaned, dust was inevitable. The girl, who had appeared mysterious moments ago, rolled her eyes. What are you complaining about? My feet are wet. Do you think I want to be barefoot?
Musin.
What are you plotting? Lu Yanzhou's restraint in not summoning the hidden bodyguards to apprehend her was a rare display of mercy. Mu Xian smiled. Aren't you curious? Why, I returned Shi Liao-liao to you. Lu Yanzhou's expression remained unchanged. I could easily capture you and interrogate you. Mu Xian shook her finger at him. If you could catch me, you would have long since bound me in your basement. Lu Yanzhou raised an eyebrow at the mention of the basement. Indeed, the Lu family possessed such a place, its existence known only to the family heads. Even Shi Liao-liao had never been informed. As he perceived a fleeting glint of murderous intent in Lu Yanzhou's calm brown eyes, Mu Xian finally divulged her secret. You revealed your past with your mother to Shi Liao-liao, but you never told her that it wasn't after Su Wanyu's death that you discovered her. The amusement faded from Mu Xian's eyes as she continued in a flat tone. You watched her take her own life. Lu Yanzhou's face betrayed no shame. And what of it? He did not deny it. He had indeed stood by, detached from the tragedy. Are you planning to tell Shi Liao-liao? His tone finally revealed a hint of emotion. Mu Xian shook her head. She aimed to show vulnerability without fully exposing the gruesome truth, thus enhancing the male protagonist's character. During the time leading up to Su Wanyu's death, her mental state had deteriorated significantly. In her despair, she had summoned Lu Yanzhou when Lu Tingfeng was absent, subjecting him to abuse. The young child bore the scars hidden beneath his clothes, enduring the maltreatment without resistance, knowing that his mother suffered more than anyone. If his suffering could alleviate her pain, he was willing to endure. Yet the harm was inescapable, exacerbated by Lu Tingfeng's indulgence. This burden lay deep within Lu Yanzhou, a wound that had never healed. Even if Mu Xian had wished to reveal it, she understood that once she spoke, Lu Yanzhou would not let her go. He swiftly grasped her throat, tightening his grip while maintaining a smile. You seem to know quite a lot. Mu Xian, unperturbed, gasped, I told you, I am your mother. This world is of my design. Lu Yanzhou regarded her with the same look one might reserve for a lunatic. Unfazed, Mu Xian continued, don't you wish to know why you can hear Shi Liao-liao as thoughts? Lu Yanzhou loosened his grip, reassessing the girl before him. Cough, cough. Mu Xian cleared her throat, touching her neck, aware that bruises would surely form. This is not the place for such a conversation. Lu Yanzhou turned away, indifferent to whether Mu Xian could keep up. As she watched his retreating figure, a fleeting glimmer of coldness flickered in Mu Xian's eyes. Were it not for her dependence on him, and the fact that Lu Yanzhou was akin to a son in her eyes, she would have harbored thoughts of eliminating him. Just as Mu Xian was about to engage in a conversation that would overturn everything Lu Yanzhou believed, on the other side, Shi Liao-liao was conversing with Wan. Wan, there's just one last sentence left to complete the task. Will you leave when it's done? Shi Liao-liao, seated in her exclusive lounge, glanced at Wan, who was happily nibbling on nuts. The little hamster looked up, cheeks stuffed to the brim.
Yes.
If the host's task remains unfulfilled, I can only stay with you here indefinitely. When the task is completed, I will have to go back. Shi Liao-liao fell silent for a moment. Just one sentence remained. Do you wish to return? Wan's dark eyes flickered for a moment before dimming. I do. Though merely a collection of data, it too had a home, despite the delicious nuts in the real world. Wan had been away for too long and yearned most for the days spent in the database, alongside other systems. Shi Liao-liao patted its head.
All right.
Once I find my way home, I will ensure you return too. Although the last sentence about the first time bringing a woman home was somewhat challenging.
Before that,
I have a question for you. Wan set aside the half-eaten nut and wiped its paws on a nearby tissue. What is it? Shi Liao-liao rested her chin on her hand and recounted the words the original owner had said to her during their encounter at the zoo. Wan's expression transformed into one of shock. What? You only tell me this now, such a significant matter. Shi Liao-liao felt a bit embarrassed. After all, the situation had been chaotic then, with her wary of Lu Yanzhou and cautious of Wan. However, as they spent more time together, Shi Liao-liao found it implausible that this little system, whose mind was filled with nuts, could possess such malicious intelligence. As her mind turned, Wan erupted. Host, you suspect I am deceiving you. I don't know. Shi Liao-liao reassured it, I know you don't know. If Wan were aware that she originally belonged to this world, it wouldn't he be oblivious to the identity of the female protagonist. Wan's goal was to complete the task. Why take such a convoluted route? Upon discovering that you are the female protagonist, I reported it to the higher-ups. However, their response was tepid, merely urging me to continue my efforts. Moreover, your soul was indeed transferred from another world. This made the situation quite peculiar. What had transpired back then that caused Shi Liao-liao's soul to drift to another realm, while a soul meant to reincarnate as a panda inadvertently replaced Shi Liao-liao's body? Host, I need to have the higher-ups investigate this matter. Wan's voice took on a serious tone. Shi Liao-liao believed in its words. All right, I will wait for you. Meanwhile, the tea by her side grew cold. Yet its owner showed no inclination to lift it. Upon hearing Mu Xian's words, though a tempest brewed within him, Lu Yanzhou's expression remained unchanged. This level of composure seldom brought comfort to Mu Xian. Once she finished speaking, Lu Yanzhou slowly began to summarize. You are suggesting that this is a world from a novel, and you are the author who created it?
Chapter 121 Mu xin not dead.
Taking a sip of tea to soothe her throat, still somewhat hoarse from having been choked moments earlier. As for why I am here. She cast a sidelong glance at Lu Yanzhou, though it seemed more like she was gazing through him at someone else. To prevent Lu Yanzhou from perceiving her as a madwoman or a delusional individual, Mu Xian continued. Many years ago, I had an accident and lost a significant portion of my memories regarding this book. Coincidentally, as this was my first book, there were no electronic backups. And without the manuscript, recalling it has proven exceedingly difficult. Yet this book holds great importance to me. She twirled a strand of hair around her finger. Had Shi Liao-liao been present, she would have noticed that this small gesture mirrored Lu Yanzhou's actions perfectly. Compared to the opposite sex, I have always been more intrigued by the same sex. I poured all my fantasies into the creation of the female protagonist. Yet, being so young, I felt that love between women was too difficult to articulate, hence I arranged for a male lead. Lu Yanzhou interjected without hesitation. It is I, Mu Xian nodded. It is you. Yet, the person Mu Xian longed to recall was not Lu Yanzhou. when I was on the hospital bed, distressed over my lost memories. One day I awakened to find myself in the world of the book, which is here. As a novelist, I am quite familiar with such occurrences. I initially thought I could be a mere bystander, observing the world I had created, while also recovering my memories. However, to my surprise, she recalled the plot, remembered Lu Yanzhou, yet could not conjure the identity of the female protagonist. Growing increasingly impatient and unable to tolerate the tranquility of this world, she took the initiative to contact Lu Tingfeng, the man responsible for all the suffering endured by the male lead and his mother. She was well aware that the so-called soul-switching method was a fabrication. Yet, the thought of Lu Tingfeng's expression when his last glimmer of hope was extinguished intrigued her. Subsequently, she contemplated fabricating a false female protagonist to entice Lu Yanzhou, thus forcing the real protagonist to reveal herself. Little did she expect that Gu Shuizhao would falter and ultimately meet her demise. Yet, the silver lining was that she became aware of Shi Liao-liao. She had thought she would find true love within her own book, only to be met with a bitter smile at the outcome. Indeed, the only being capable of resonating with her soul was her own daughter. Later, when Shi Liao-liao lost her memory, Mu Xian had initially intended to take her away. But even in her amnesia, Shi Liao-liao did not forget Lu Yanzhou. No matter how many lies she spun, the truth remained unchanged. Reflecting on the days spent with a lamp and a pen, tirelessly perfecting character designs, Mu Xian ultimately found herself unable to bear it. After listening, Lu Yanzhou did not rush to speak, lowering his gaze to digest the information before he slowly inquired, "What is the matter with the heart voice?" Mu Xian anticipated that this would be his first question. "This is a long story, one I stumbled upon inadvertently." She drank her tea in one gulp and poured herself another cup. Her movements were graceful, even more so than Lu Yanzhou's. It was only when Lu Yanzhou's expression began to show impatience that she spoke again. "After I arrived in this world, as time passed, my memories gradually returned. Just last time, when I sent Shi Liao-liao back." She paused slightly, lifting the corners of her mouth to reveal a strange smile at Lu Yanzhou. "To clarify, I do not know why I can freely traverse between the reality and the world of the book." Lu Yanzhou's fingers twitched slightly. No wonder the Lu and Shi families had turned the nation upside down and could not locate her. "I initially intended to exit this place and return to the real world, but I discovered that I could not go back." At this point, Mu Xian's gaze darkened. In her frantic state, her memories began to shift once more. It was only then that she recalled the manuscript had actually been written in 2 versions. Aside from the normal version, there was another that integrated the popular theme of mind reading at the time. Perhaps due to Mu Xian's intervention or some other butterfly effect, the 2 different versions of the world had quietly merged without anyone's knowledge. Now, as the integration became increasingly complete, she found herself unable to return to her original world. "What do you wish for?" Upon hearing this, Lu Yanzhou made no comment but merely fixed his cold, tea-brown eyes on Mu Xian. Even knowing that this person before him was, in a sense, the deity who created him, Lu Yanzhou's demeanor remained largely unchanged. The creator deity is but a mere mortal, constrained by the same corporeal needs as any other, subject to the whims of fate and entirely mortal in essence. It is indeed possible to vanquish them.
Mu Xin smiled.
Finding that conversing with the astute was a time-saving endeavor, she resolved to forsake her telepathic abilities. By eliminating the most prominent version of mind reading, the world would gradually revert to its original state, thereby allowing Mu Xian to return to her reality. Lu Yanzhou propped his chin in his hand, gazing at her with an enigmatic smile. "This information is insufficient. What else do you desire?" Mu Xian, clearly prepared for this inquiry, remained silent for an extended period. She even momentarily questioned the state of her protagonist. "Is this it?" Her expression was a tapestry of complexity. It was indeed a challenging matter. How to relinquish mind reading? Lu Yanzhou's lips curled into a slight smile, his demeanor brimming with anticipation for the future. Observing his expression, Mu Xian remarked, "It's quite simple. As long as Liao mentions the first time the young master brought a woman home, it will suffice." Lu Yanzhou raised an eyebrow, caught off guard, as if he doubted her sincerity. Their gazes locked for what felt like an eternity, and it was only when Mu Xian's face remained devoid of any pretense that Lu Yanzhou accepted her words as genuine. "What does this have to do with mind reading?" he inquired, but before Mu Xian could respond, he continued, "According to your account, you awoke to find yourself in this world. How, then, do you possess such extensive knowledge?" His chestnut-colored eyes pierced through her, as if delving into her very soul, causing her heart to flutter. Yet Mu Xian met his gaze with unwavering confidence, a playful smile gracing her lips as she glanced behind Lu Yanzhou. "Qiao Liao," she uttered. Lu Yanzhou, aware it might be a ruse, nonetheless turned around. To his surprise, he found nothing but emptiness behind him. When he turned back, Mu Xian had vanished. The window stood wide open, letting in a chilling breeze that mingled with the falling snowflakes, which gradually melted into his tea. Lu Yanzhou did not close the window. Instead, he sat quietly in his seat, his eyes downcast, lost in contemplation. Qiao Liao waited in the men's restroom for an excruciatingly long time until the fifth man exited, casting a complicated glance her way, yet Lu Yanzhou still did not appear. When she dialed his number, her phone indicated it was off. With a sigh, Qiao Liao pondered, "Surely, he hasn't fallen into the toilet?" With that thought, she took a running start, ready to dash into the men's restroom. As she mentally counted to 3, just as she was about to burst through the door, a tall figure emerged from the shadows to block her path. "Miss, if you go in there, the young master will have our heads in the toilet," the towering bodyguard said with a wry smile. Seeing this, Qiao Liao's lips curled into a smirk as she seized his arm. "You know where Lu Yanzhou is, don't you? Tell him that if he doesn't show up before me, I shall be the one to dunk his head in the toilet." Chapter 122 Bodyguard. If the young master's fiancé has said so. "Please wait a moment, Mississippi." Without a moment's hesitation, the bodyguard quickly made a decision for the sake of the young master's well-being. He signaled with his eyes, and another individual emerged from the shadows, taking his place in front of Qiao Liao with a singular aim to prevent her from storming into the men's restroom. Prior to the bodyguard's arrival, Lu Yanzhou remained in the room conversing with Mu Xian, a sheet of paper spread before him as he scribbled notes and sketches. When a knock echoed through the door, he abruptly halted his pen, setting aside the mind map he had been organizing for the past half hour, placing it next to a candle until it burned down to a pile of indistinguishable ash. "Young master." The bodyguard rushed in after receiving permission. Upon seeing it was one of the guards assigned to Qiao Liao, Lu Yanzhou frowned slightly. "What is it?" He was haunted by the fear that Qiao Liao might be snatched away at any moment. Fortunately, the Lu and Shi families were not inept. Their protection was as solid as iron, and any mishap involving Qiao Liao would require an extraordinary level of negligence from the guards. "The young lady is looking for you." Lu Yanzhou glanced at his watch, realizing that time had indeed slipped away. Even if one were to be constipated, it was high time to remedy that. "I shall head over immediately." After a brief wait, Lu Yanzhou approached from the opposite direction of the restroom. "Have you finished your conversation?" His gaze fell to her feet, noting that she had changed into new shoes, which softened his expression. "Everyone else has gone to dance, and I am left with nothing to do. Had you returned a moment later, you would have witnessed me dancing with another man," he teased, a smile dancing in his eyes. "How delightful." Unfortunately, no man present would dare to ask her for a dance, for no one wished to find themselves forcibly expelled from S-City upon waking the next day. He encountered an acquaintance and exchanged a few pleasantries. As he recalled Mu Xian's words regarding the female lead, a shadow crossed his expression. The term world within a book was initially shocking and bewildering, yet upon reflection, it seemed unworthy of further scrutiny. Where I exist, there lies reality. Yet mind reading held greater significance. While the ability to hear others' thoughts was undeniably intriguing, over time, he found himself increasingly disinclined to rely on it. According to Mu Xian, the original purpose of mind reading was to pique his interest in Qiao Liao, yet even without it, his feelings for her remained unchanged. Meanwhile, Qiao Liao mulled over the appropriate moment to utter her final words to Lu Yanzhou, while he had already formulated his own plans. "Shall we dance?" Upon returning, Lu Yanzhou observed Yang Qingzhou and Bai Liye dancing at the center of the floor, their expressions exuding delight as they twirled. He turned to Qiao Liao. Influenced by the two, others with partners began to join in the revelry. Qiao Liao hesitated. "I can dance, after all. The first skill I learned upon joining the Lu family was social dance." But then she waved Lu Yanzhou over, signaling for him to come closer. He complied, bending down slightly. "But I don't know how to lead." Lu Yanzhou paused for a moment before breaking into a laugh. "Then I shall lead." To Qiao Liao's astonishment, he took her hand and led her into the dance floor. Consequently, the jovial group, who had been enjoying their drinks and conversations, suddenly found their merriment interrupted as they noticed the shift in the atmosphere. Within the dance floor, pairs of elegantly moving couples glided about, yet one particular pairing stood out, both in appearance and grace. In the next moment, the slender, cool-haired girl spun gracefully, embracing the waist of the tall man before her, completing a flawless 180-degree turn. All eyes were on them. Even Yang Qingzhou and Bai Liya, who had previously been engrossed in each other, now stared in shock, their expressions mirroring that of someone who had seen a ghost. Heavenly mercy, did you see that? Lu Yanzhou, the young master, is actually leading. Liao-liao, if threatened, blink once. The dancers around them had completely lost focus on their own movements, their gazes fixated on the two. Sensing the scrutiny, Liao-liao felt a twinge of embarrassment and remarked, "It seems everyone is staring at us." Lu Yanzhou chuckled nonchalantly, his chestnut eyes sparkling brighter than the chandelier above them. Perhaps they are envious. After all, not every man possesses the courage to dance with his partner in such a manner in public. Liao-liao scanned the crowd. Is that so? While she didn't see envy, she began to wonder if she had accidentally stepped in something foul. Due to the attention, Liao-liao chose to end the dance after this one song, refraining from pressing on. Although Lu Yanzhou's expression bore a hint of regret, he did not compel her to continue. After their departure, Bai Liya personally escorted the somewhat tipsy Yang Qingzhou away. Before leaving, Shi Liao exchanged a warm embrace with the young lady Bai. She tenderly tucked a stray strand of hair, tousled by the wind, behind Bai Liya's ear and softly whispered, "Do not force yourself. I wish you happiness." With that, as if nothing had transpired, she gracefully stepped back and returned to Lu Yanzhou's side. The latter's gaze flickered momentarily, revealing a trace of regret as it passed over Shi Liao. However, this sentiment swiftly dissipated when Yang Qingzhou's attention shifted towards him, restoring a semblance of normalcy. The subtle exchanges between the two remained unnoticed by all but Lu Yanzhou, who, upon catching sight of Bai Liya nestled beside Yang Qingzhou, unexpectedly, and for the first time, offered her a slight smile. To an outsider, it might have been misinterpreted, yet Bai Liya understood it to be laden with provocation. Regrettably, the other party's facade was too deceptive. Without direct confrontation, no one could perceive the underlying sharpness. Bai Liya, infuriated, nearly ground her teeth in frustration. What was there to be proud of? Marriage could be undone, and she refused to believe they could last a lifetime. Little did Bai Liya know, in the decades to come, she would repeat this sentiment nearly every year, even recalling it on her 80th birthday. "Shi Liao, let us head home," Xian said with a smile, nimbly pulling Shi Liao along. Turning to Lu Yanzhou, he added, "Thank you for taking care of my sister, Xiaolu. We shall take our leave now." Lu Yanzhou remained composed, a knowing smile gracing his lips as he addressed Shi Liao. "Have I not spoken with Madame Shi? Might I have the pleasure of your company for the evening?" Chapter 123. This line was decidedly perilous, sending alarm bells ringing in Xian's mind. "Shi Liao, my brother disapproves," he exclaimed, glancing down at his sister. Caught between them, Shi Liao mused, "It seems I do owe Lu Yanzhou a massage." Compared to the Shi family, her most vivid memories were intertwined with Lu Yanzhou. Thus, despite the reluctance of the Shi father and son, they had complied with Madame Shi's wishes to allow Shi Liao to remain with Lu Yanzhou temporarily. However, as Shi Liao's condition improved remarkably, with even the doctor praising her exceptional recovery, Xian was reluctant to leave his sister in what he perceived as a den of wolves. Lu Yanzhou's smile deepened. Ultimately, Shi Liao chose to accompany him. After all, if her brother were to be upset, he could be placated later. However, if Lu Yanzhou were to be angered, it would not be so easily mended. Moreover, it had been a considerable time. The promised massage was due. Yet, Shi Liao had forgotten that circumstances had changed. Lu Yanzhou was no longer a mere adult who could be appeased with a simple massage after her frequent mishaps. "Are we not returning home?" Shi Liao inquired, her curiosity piqued as the scenery outside the window grew increasingly unfamiliar. Lu Yanzhou, with a gentle touch upon her hair, replied in a somewhat enigmatic tone, "We are returning to our own home." Shi Liao was taken aback. As the vehicle slowed to a stop at an unfamiliar location, Lu Yanzhou guided her out, and she gazed up at the resplendent, towering castle illuminated before her, momentarily rendered speechless. "Who brought Disneyland here?" She marveled in astonishment. Observing her gaping expression, Lu Yanzhou explained with a calm demeanor, his words succinct. "Wedding house." Shi Liao turned, wide-eyed. "We are merely ordinary unmarried individuals. You are overstepping. What jest is this? You've prepared a wedding house before we've even decided to marry?" Lu Yanzhou smiled knowingly, his chestnut eyes sparkling even in the night. "No matter, let us transform our relationship into something extraordinary this evening." Shi Liao blinked in surprise. "Would you like to step inside?" Lu Yanzhou extended his arm in a gentlemanly manner, bowing slightly as he invited her in. Servants lined the pathway, parting to create a route adorned with a red carpet leading to the castle's grand entrance, illuminated as bright as day, with the sound of a magnificent fountain echoing in their ears as they were welcomed. Shi Liao glanced once more at Lu Yanzhou, meeting his gaze that seemed reminiscent of their first encounter, yet now imbued with tender affection. Very well, she acquiesced, linking her arm with his and bestowing him with a radiant smile. Maru leaped onto her shoulder, exclaiming, "Host, this is the perfect moment to say that phrase." Shi Liao's expression shifted, realizing the appropriateness of the moment. She had not noticed Lu Yanzhou's gaze upon her, and as she abruptly looked up, she collided with his eyes. "What is it?" she asked, sensing something amiss in his demeanor. Lu Yanzhou swiftly concealed his emotions, countering her question with one of his own. "What do you wish to say?" Shi Liao released his hand and leaned toward one of the maids nearby, whispering something. The maid, though puzzled, obediently stepped away. Seizing the opportunity, Shi Liao filled the void, raising her voice to address Lu Yanzhou, who stood alone on the red carpet. "Master, for the first time, brings a woman home." With that, she feigned wiping away non-existent tears in an exaggerated display of emotion. Were it not for their differing appearances and attire, one might have mistaken her for an elderly butler. The maid remarked, "Those who enjoy romance novels will surely come sniffing around soon." Lu Yanzhou regarded Shi Liao with a peculiar expression. Yet before he could speak, their expressions shifted simultaneously.
Ding.
"Congratulations, host, for unlocking the butler's famous quote achievement for the first time bringing a woman home. Congratulations on completing the task. You may choose to remain in this world or return to your original one."
Ding.
The assistant reminds you, should you opt to remain in this world, a mysterious gift awaits you. A mysterious gift? Just as Shi Liao became intrigued, Lu Yanzhou's phone rang, its sound jarring against the silence, having been set to silent upon their departure from the vehicle. When he did not answer promptly, Shi Liao stepped forward, tilting her head and urging, "Answer it." The number was unfamiliar. Lu Yanzhou, unfazed, recognized Mu Xian's voice on the other end. "I am leaving, no need to inform Shi Liao. He had never intended to. You may wonder how I know so much. The truth is." Lu Yanzhou listened in silence until the call disconnected, his phone still in hand. What trouble had arisen at work? "If you're busy, you need not concern yourself with me. I've completed my lines," Shi Liao said, noting the change in his expression. Lu Yanzhou hung up, turning to her, his gaze falling upon her shoulder. The hamster that had previously nestled there had vanished without a trace. After a moment of silence, Lu Yanzhou grasped Shi Liao's wrist, swiftly pulling her forward. Bewildered, Shi Liao was led along. They ascended to the third floor, where Lu Yanzhou ushered her into the last room, closing the door behind them before leaning down to kiss her. Shi Liao felt her limbs weaken under his kiss. Unable to resist, she succumbed to the moment. Only when her hands slipped from his neck in exhaustion did Lu Yanzhou finally release her. His voice, husky and laden with desire, filled the air. "You will always be by my side, will you not?" Still somewhat dazed, Shi Liao replied without hesitation, "Will you always be by my side?" Lu Yanzhou answered without a moment's doubt, "I will. Even in death, our ashes shall remain intertwined, eternally entangled before the gates of the underworld." Shi Liao-liao shrugged. "Then I shall too." Without the resonance of heartfelt confessions, Lu Yanzhou would never discern whether Shi Liao-liao's sentiments were in harmony with her words. Yet, such matters had become trivial. "Aren't we meant to indulge in a massage?" Shi Liao-liao remarked, touching her swollen lips, casting an exasperated glare in his direction. Lu Yanzhou's lips curled into a mischievous smile, a hint of wickedness dancing within. "Shall I give you a massage? It will be quite pleasurable." His long fingers caressed her earlobe, teasingly kneading it. Gradually, they descended, unzipping her skirt, while his other hand lifted the fabric, slipping beneath. Then, he revealed a bundle of glow sticks. Lu Yanzhou gazed down at the objects, lost in contemplation. Chapter 124. Shi Liao-liao lowered her head. "Oh no. I just realized I haven't broken this habit." She cleared her throat. "Do you like my big glow sticks?" Lu Yanzhou, holding the bundle, suddenly recalled the two he had tucked away in his drawer. His expression shifted, a myriad of emotions flitting across his face. After a considerable pause, he finally posed the question as if accepting the reality. "You've been using glow sticks, pretending with those?" It was unnecessary to elaborate on which he referred to. Shi Liao-liao was acutely aware. Despite her reluctance to admit it, the evidence lay before her. The tape still adhered to her thigh. Upon hearing this, Lu Yanzhou could have transformed into a wolf on the spot, should one believe it. Regrettably, Shi Liao-liao still underestimated his gentlemanly demeanor. Unbeknownst to her, Lu Yanzhou harbored similar wild intentions. By the time Shi Liao-liao grasped the situation, she had already sunk into the softness of the large bed. Lu Xiaoye's fair cheeks were tinged with a blush, his chestnut eyes glistening like spring water, a small mole adorning the corner, utterly captivating. It was as if the predatory allure emanating from him was unmistakable. Shi Liao-liao mused that Lu Xiaoye was more suited to be under her dominance. Naturally, such thoughts were best kept to herself. She patted him. Come on. Lu Yanzhou's eyes sparkled with excitement, his tongue wetting his lips. The night was still young. When Shi Liao-liao awoke, she found herself alone. On the bedside table, warm water and a hot towel had been thoughtfully prepared. The moment she stirred, her features contorted in discomfort. At last, she understood the classic literary description of how one feels after a night of passion, akin to being run over by a truck. Though Lu Yanzhou had embraced her during a bath the previous night, she found herself unable to resist a soak early that morning, seeking to gather her thoughts. Seated in the bathtub, she idly picked up the flower petals that the servant had scattered beforehand, twirling them in her fingers. At the moment the task was completed, Maru departed. At that instant, the little hamster waved goodbye before vanishing from her shoulder. Shi Liao-liao rested her arm on the edge of the tub, leaning her head against it. Speaking of which, there seemed to be some gift she had yet to uncover. Touching the red marks on her arm, she tapped lightly. Are you there? Dear esteemed host, would you like to open your gift now? Shi Liao-liao selected yes. The moment she spoke, a wave of disorientation washed over her, the scene before her gradually blurring. When her awareness returned, she found herself in a completely unfamiliar environment. The room was spacious yet warmly decorated, with exquisite toys scattered across the floor as if it belonged to a child. What a well-behaved baby, she mused. Upon observing the room's layout, an unsettling sense of familiarity washed over her as she heard a woman's voice. Glancing down at her hands, now translucent like a spirit, Shi Liao-liao felt a degree of reassurance and ventured deeper into the room. In the innermost bedroom, a massive crib stood in the center, beside which a woman dressed as a maid stood, her hair in disarray, her expression bordering on madness. Shi Liao-liao frowned. Baby, mommy is here to take you. The woman's laughter was jarring, and in the next moment, she bent down to lift something. Shi Liao-liao then noticed a small infant swaddled in a blanket, lying quietly in the crib. I was such a good child, Shi Liao-liao reflected, as she recognized the room's layout and the maid's demeanor. It became clear that she was witnessing the scene from years past when she had been abducted. Unfortunately, there was nothing she could do but watch as her younger self was taken away. At that time, she likely hadn't yet entered another world. Presuming she understood what the system referred to as a gift, Shi Liao-liao followed the maid. Somehow, this maid had inexplicably managed to lead the daughter of the Shi family away without a hitch. Following her into a dilapidated neighborhood, Shi Liao-liao silently observed as the maid cradled her, singing a dissonant lullaby. Time passed, and suddenly, the maid's facial muscles began to twitch. In a fit of anxiety, she tugged at her own hair, hurling the child onto the sofa. Shi Liao-liao's heart raced in alarm. Who are you? You are not my baby. Where is my baby? The woman paced frantically, visibly agitated, before banging her head against the wall until blood flowed. Abruptly, she ceased her actions, and Shi Liao-liao noticed her eyes suddenly clear. Yes. The maid sprang to her feet, leaning over the sofa, her gaze gleaming with excitement as she looked at the child. I once saw the lady place a scroll in the storage room with a complex expression. I peered at it. That object is called the soul exchange secret method. To bring my child back, I must sacrifice you. Shi Liao-liao blinked slowly, stunned. The cursed soul exchange secret method has appeared so soon? Just as she wished to continue observing, the scene suddenly warped, and her surroundings shifted. With a start, she found herself back in her bathtub. As confusion enveloped her, the mechanical voice of the system resonated in her mind once more. The reason you have been transferred into another body is due to the soul exchange secret method. We detected a discrepancy in the soul within the female host and immediately conducted an investigation, thus summoning you from your original world to this one. Shi Liao-liao had not anticipated that the soul exchange secret method was indeed effective, implying that she had been ensnared by it since birth. What about the task? She inquired. The voice elucidated. To ensure you integrate more actively into this world, fostering a sense of belonging and enhancing your relationship with the male lead. We concealed the small system, leading it to believe you were a transmigrator. Shi Liao-liao. So, this is the truth of the matter? The system's voice, cold yet unexpectedly verbose, continued. Of course, we did not hesitate to recruit the original author. Just as it seemed poised to elaborate further, it suddenly fell silent. What original author? Shi Liao-liao pressed. This time, the system refused to divulge any more information. Gift delivered, wishing you eternal happiness, farewell. With that, Shi Liao-liao felt a lightness in her body, as if something had departed from within her. A sense of finality washed over her, and she offered a wry smile as she stood amidst the cascading water. She had expected that by this hour, Yanzhou would have already departed. However, upon descending the stairs, she was led by a maid to the dining room, where the voice of Madame Shi greeted her. Liao-liao, come eat. Upon seeing Madame Shi, Shi Liao-liao momentarily froze, until a towering figure, clad in a pink cartoon apron, leaned in, gazing at her with an exceedingly gentle expression. My daughter has arrived. Come to eat. Shi Liao-liao, filled with wonder, asked, how did Dad and Mom get here? Just then, a radiant smile emerged from behind, revealing the beautiful, elongated eyes of the elder brother, and there's also Big Brother. Yanzhou stepped out from behind Shi Feng, and as the two who had been entwined the previous night exchanged glances, Shi Liao-liao felt a shiver run down her spine, instinctively glancing at his neck. Perfect, he wore a high-neck sweater. With the marks she had left, anyone would know what transpired. She could not allow anyone to see. It's time to eat. Yanzhou personally pulled out her chair, slightly bowing in a gesture of invitation. Shi Liao-liao inexplicably smiled. Previously, she had been the one to pull out Yanzhou's chair. Now, the tides had turned, and Lu Xiaoyi had become her little servant. Beside them, Shi Yan approached the other side of the chair, mimicking Yanzhou's earlier gesture of bending down. Your Highness, please take a seat. Only then did Shi Liao-liao contentedly settle into her chair. Shi Feng, observing from the side, felt a twitch of impatience. Yet it was only when the lady beside him shot a piercing glance his way that he composed himself and cleared his throat. Once everyone was seated, Shi Feng's wife smiled and remarked, we are family and must align ourselves harmoniously. Although today is not a particularly special occasion for Shi Liao-liao, it surpasses many others. Concealed by the dining table, Yanzhou discreetly clasped the hand of the individual beside him. Shi Liao-liao glanced sideways at him, but did not withdraw her hand. Her chestnut-colored eyes curved gently, and her previously unsettled heart, akin to a drifting water weed, found tranquility. Regardless of where you come from, I shall not let go of my sister. I heard that Qingcheng is getting engaged. Shi Liao-liao's fork slipped from her fingers. What? Xian spoke of the matter with a tone laced with intrigue. That girl seems to have appeared out of nowhere, captivating young Qingcheng. After only a few days, he is already dragging her into an engagement, leaving the Yang family astounded. Shi Liao-liao's thoughts stirred, turning to the ever-stoic Yanzhou beside her. It felt as though this matter was somehow intertwined with him. Yanzhou's lips curved into his customary smile, though a hint of delight flickered within. The pace of Muxin's revelations was quite brisk, until Xian spoke again, his voice dripping with mischief. Speaking of which, Liao-liao, you may not be aware, but during Halloween one year when they were young, Yanzhou arrived too late and was forced to wear the remaining dress. As fate would have it, young Qingcheng, who was playing with him at the time, fell head over heels for him. It wasn't until they both entered the restroom that Qingcheng witnessed her idol revealing a more substantial endowment than his own.
Ha ha ha.
Shi Liao-liao burst into laughter, tears streaming down her face, as she turned to Yanzhou. So that's why he has always looked at you with disdain. The young master, with an air of nobility, resolutely distanced himself from the sibling banter. Xian continued. Oh, speaking of which, Qingcheng's little girlfriend bears a striking resemblance to you, a veritable female version of Yanzhou. To his side, his fiancée not only showed no signs of jealousy, but instead dissolved into laughter, causing Yanzhou's spoon to droop silently. He had been mistaken. Muxin should never return to her former self. Next time, let me see you in a dress, Shi Liao-liao whispered playfully, leaning against a shoulder. To her surprise, Yanzhou laughed instead of getting angry, his pale lips curving slightly, and his chestnut eyes reflecting an inscrutable depth.
All right.
Shi Liao-liao quickly retreated.
Perhaps not, she said.
Yanzhou curled his fingers around hers, his tone leaving no room for argument. It's too late. She muttered softly, you're more calculating than a child. This Yanzhou was not the same as before. That evening, He would physically ensure that Shi Liao-liao would never utter such words again. After a series of blunders involving the author's amnesia and the heroine's lost soul, through a fortuitous combination of efforts and the villain's assistance, the world finally returned to its rightful course. "Good morning, young master. It's time to rise." Lu Yanzhou's face was buried in the soft pillow. Upon hearing the voice, he instinctively reached out beside him, but found no one there. Only then did he half open his eyes, the hazel hue of his gaze hazily reflecting the figure by the bedside, imbued with a sense of bewilderment. Shi Liao-liao had gathered her long hair into a bun and was bending down to look at him, her cool smile gracing her lips. Lu Yanzhou rolled over, shutting his eyes again, pretending not to hear. The former maid blinked, stepped onto his bed, and nudged him. "Come on, I admit my fault. Your fiancé? Boyfriend? Rise and shine." Seeing his lack of response, she leaned close to his ear and whispered, "Yanzhou, if you don't get up, I may have to punish you with my giant glow stick." Lu Yanzhou's eyelids twitched. He pulled the noisy one into his embrace, his arms securely wrapping around her, and brushed his lips against her cheek, his voice muffled. "Don't let me sleep a little longer," Shi Liao-liao retorted. "Did you just bite my nose?" Lu Yanzhou touched his nose, opening his eyes, which were glistening with unshed tears, looking at her with an almost pitiful expression. Shi Liao-liao lifted her chin. "Get up." Eventually, Lu Yanzhou did rise. "Your parents are here, so wake up a bit." Upon hearing that the Zais were visiting, Lu Yanzhou seemed to shake off his drowsiness. "Uncle, aunt, good morning." Upon appearing before the elders, Lu Yanzhou transformed from the languid figure he had been with Shi Liao-liao into a young man, shedding the childishness of his student days. Yet, his warm hazel eyes remained approachable, and the small mole beneath his left eye softened the sharp contours of his face, evoking a sense of fondness. Seeing her future son-in-law, Mrs. Shi could not suppress her smile. "You haven't eaten breakfast yet, have you? I noticed you both were still asleep. So I went to the kitchen and prepared something. Do try it and see if it suits your taste." Lu Yanzhou, not one to be polite, replied with a gentle smile, "I love the dishes aunt makes. How could they not suit my palate?" As he took his seat, Lu Yanzhou inadvertently settled into the chair that had been pulled out for him. Noticing something amiss, he turned to see Shi Liao-liao, slightly bent over, who had assisted him. Realizing what she had done, she met Lu Yanzhou's gaze and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, it's a habit." To an outsider, it might seem as though Lu Yanzhou treated her like a servant in private. Opposite them, Mrs. Shi chuckled, her laughter melodic. "Liao-liao, you truly are something. After all these years, you still haven't gotten used to it." Although her tone was teasing, the concern in her eyes was unmistakable. "Mister." She took her hand and said to Shi Liao-liao, "Sit down and eat. Aren't you hungry?" Promptly, Shi Liao-liao complied, while Lu Yanzhou, unfazed, placed his hand on her thigh, slowly sliding it upward. He pinched her, as if to serve as a playful reprimand. After the meal, the group settled in the living room. Shi Liao-liao sat beside Mrs. Shi, leaning against her mother. It was then that her father took a sip of tea and stated, "We are here today to discuss your marriage. Having been together for so many years, now that you are both grown, it is time to consider the matter of marriage." Shi Liao-liao turned to look at Lu Yanzhou across from her. Lu Yanzhou's expression remained unchanged as he nodded toward Mr. Shi. "Uncle is right. I am ready whenever, but..." He cast a meaningful glance at Shi Liao-liao opposite him. The end of the text. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and like to support. Until we meet again in the next story.